Has there been no sound this whole time? 1 second. Oh, crud. Let me fix this up. You can see how underprepared I am for the stream. Sorry about that. Ah, crud. They pushed the wire back here. So sorry. Sorry about that. Now I see the problem now. Is the sound going? Oh, now it's really coming from here. Okay, cool. Excellent. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Apparently my mic was unplugged and the volume was muted. So sorry. Technical difficulties aside, we're back. Sorry about the lack of sound there. That was funny. Okay, cool. Well, we'll find out soon enough. Am I a Gen 1er? Yes, I love Pokemon Gen 1. Although I'm more of a Gen 2 fan in terms of like the world, but I love Gen 1. Anyway, The Acolyte. People are very upset about this show, and for some reason, yeah. Now everything's done. Okay, cool. So repeating myself right now. So, to repeat myself, sorry about the sound. The big issue with what I'm doing right now is I'm going through a bunch of reviews for The Acolyte, going through both before release and post-release to see whether or not the show deserves any of the flack it's been getting so far. People are reacting very negatively about every component of the show. Now, personally, I think it's all right. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's all right. It's decent. And quite frankly, a lot of the reactions about this show have been very hyperbolic. Quite frankly. There was an article I was shared from Forbes where they argued that the show, in 4 episodes, has superseded. There have been more bad reviews for The Acolyte than every other Star Wars show. In fact, there have been more reviews for The Acolyte than any other Star Wars show. They're saying that there have been about approximately, I'm going to say around, what was the number they said? 26,000 written reviews for The Acolyte, compared to 16,000 for The Mandalorian, all 3 seasons combined. So, huge reaction to this show. My personal opinion, I'll get this out of the way right now, and again, just to reiterate, what we're filming right now will become part of an upcoming video I'm working on. But to say my opinions on The Acolyte before we really dive in, maybe just my mic audio a bit. I think The Acolyte is fine. I think it's all right. It's nothing fantastic. It's nothing terrible. It's just a good, solid week-to-week space mystery. And there's nothing about it that's particularly egregious, but has some flaws. I think the dialogue is a little stiff, in fact, very stiff, depending on what scene it's in, what actor's reading the lines. I think a lot of the sets, though I do appreciate that they're sets and not just the volume, they do look a little fake at times, some more than others. You can tell they're limited, you can tell they aren't moving too far in one direction because it's like a very narrow space, but I also grew up with stuff like Xena and what was the Sword of Truth TV show? Legend of the Seeker, was that it? You know, like the Sam Raimi fantasy shows. So for me, I'm not too disturbed by stiff sets. What are my opinions on the Ki Adi Mundi retcon and the thread 4C thing? I'm going to go into this throughout the video. I don't care about Ki Adi Mundi. I think, quite frankly, retcons happen all the time. Like I'm going to mention this in the video I do on Tuesday, but you know, retcons happened when George Lucas was in charge too. So, for example, those of you who don't know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, it was confirmed in guidebooks, just like Ki-Adi Mundi's birth date. It was confirmed in guidebooks that Obi-Wan Kenobi was born and raised on Coruscant. This was a thing back in the old days of the canon. And then George Lucas one day comes up and says, "Oh, hey, actually, he comes from a planet called Stew-Jon, and I'm calling it Stew-Jon because I was watching Jon Stewart last night, and the name stuck out to me, because Stew-Jon is Jon Stewart's name, just with a couple of vowels knocked off." And so that became canon. So Star Wars canon has never been a particularly intense structure. It's always been flexible and can change with the drop of a hat. And quite frankly, Star Wars in general, like I've said this multiple times before, I think Star Wars is fun. It's a good science fiction series, good science fantasy series, but it's not Lord of the Rings, it's not Dune, it's not a heavy duty like mythology. It's just a fun space opera. And I think anyone who takes it too seriously is doing Star Wars wrong. I think you have to be a little goofy with Star Wars. You have to have fun with it because it is such a goofy concept. George Lucas, look, Luke Skywalker is named Luke S. Right? It's Luke with an S at the end. It's Luke Skywalker. It's Lucas. It's George Lucas. Like, there's elements of Star Wars that are so hokey and so silly. I find it funny when people get so worked up about Star Wars. I've never thought that it's been like Keanu Mundi is showing up here as the equivalent of Bill Clinton showing up in Victorian England. That's how bad it is. No, it's not. It really isn't. And quite frankly, we are talking about fictional characters showing up in real life. That's not even remotely equivalent. Keanu Mundi showing up is like the Howling Commandos in Captain America showing up when they did. It's like seeing. It's like having. What's an example of this? There's a few other examples too from comic book stuff, and no one cares about that. Like, the thing ultimately is Keanu Mundi's entire life and whole canon was in the previous canon, which was tossed out. So it's a different continuity. So who cares? You know, it doesn't matter. And like the Bill Clinton thing was funny. I will give that. It was pretty funny, the Bill Clinton comparison. But like, it's just goofy. Like, it's not really that big a deal. I think anyone who gets like so worked up that their hair is graying from the stress of Star Wars lore is doing Star Wars lore wrong. So I'm seeing some arguing in the comments here. Keanu Mundi's entire life in the Legends canon has no application to the current canon. They are different continuities. This is like watching the Christopher Reeve Superman movie and going, wait a second, why isn't Batman here and he's played by Ben Affleck? It's like they're totally different continuities. There's no comparison anymore. Xena's a lot of fun, yeah. Anyway, again, it's a retcon. These things happen. When you're a comic fan, you get used to retcons so frequently it doesn't even faze you anymore. Star Wars, it's just a play box, man. That's all it is. Anyway. Let's just dive right into this, shall we? So, we have a lot of different reviews I've found. Let me move this aside. Wrong one. A lot of different reviews I've found for Star Wars. Why it isn't such a big deal. So, seeing your pet hamster show up as a canonical character in Hamilton because it is in the lifespan of Keanu Reeves, established species, but I understand. I don't really get that comment there. Anyway, yeah, retcons are inevitable. That's just the life. That's just fandom life right there. Now, we have some people in who are watching right now, so I feel it's safe to say we can dive right into the deep dive. I'm gonna try getting a bunch of different viewpoints here. I want to watch as many different, both in terms of recent videos and in terms of old videos as well. I want to see how people are reacting to The Acolyte months before it launched and currently. Fate and Nasuverse. Yeah, so compared to Fate, Star Wars is a pretty solid canon. The Fate fans, you have to draw a chart to figure out what's going on. And even like with smaller franchises like Halloween, smaller in terms of entries, not in terms of like length of time it existed, Halloween requires a chart just to follow the continuity. So I don't have a strong opinion on retcons. Yeah. And if you're a Marvel fan or a DC fan, retcons are, forget it. You know, and again, with Legends, it was retconned out of everything 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago. You know? It's been 10 years. So, and that's another thing, too. In the comments I'm seeing, no one cared about Chewbacca coming back. Yeah, no one complained when Chewbacca was still alive. That's a retcon from Legends. Why do we care about you know, Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth date when Chewbacca's birth date is, like, survival is not mentioned. You know, it's totally fine. People, I think everyone's getting way too hyperbolic about this. Y'all need to chill a little bit, all right? That's my opinion. So we're going to see people who are not chill about any of this get angry at Star Wars. So let's take a look at one of these. I haven't watched any of these, by the way, so I have no idea what they're going to say. Hopefully none of them demonetize me, because that'd be rough. All my streams last week were demonetized because of early placement of the F-bomb. So here's hoping. I'm gonna stick with first super chat. Will, thank you for the super chat. Are you going to watch the EFAP's highlight video on The Acolyte? I might just. If I can find it. That's not a bad idea. I can do that. I mean, as long as it's the highlight video and it's of reasonable length, because I want to fit a few videos into this stream. I don't want to keep going until like 11 o'clock at night, but if it takes 4 hours, it'll take 4 hours. I do want to get to this Nerdrotic video. I saw Asmongold react to it, so I assume it's like something that's worth reacting to, I guess, in terms of like getting an understanding of their perspective. I also want to go to older videos as well. It's almost 1 million views. I think that's a fair point to look at them. Plus, Qui-Gon Jinn's age changed in the new canon. No one complained about that. All right, let's jump on to this Nerdrotic video. I think this will be a good... Oh, next super chat. The Guy, thank you for the super chat. Mass Effect fan here. They were retconning stuff as soon as the first DLC, the first game. Yeah, exactly. And I like Mass Effect. I haven't played the games in years. I remember loving them when I first played them, but I remember there being a lot of retcons in that. And that's another thing, too. I would love to replay Mass Effect and Dragon Age a little bit at some point. That's the thing got to get on there. Off topic, but I love Misty's Johto design. I mean, I loved it if she had that design when she... Yeah, I agree. I love Misty's design. I think Misty's a great character, personally. I've always loved Misty as a character, and I think I've loved most of the first 2 gens in terms of gym leaders. I think Sabrina was always my favorite because of just how, like, terrifying she was. Everyone was complaining about the crap Disney changed. I mean, everyone? That's a lot. Here's the thing you gotta keep in mind about Star Wars fandom, alright? And this is... And before we get started... Oh, no, the super chat. Nikosi G, thank you for super chat. Anyone leading this? Harry Potter books? HR books. HR books, better than show. HR. Why do I feel like I should know what HR stands for? What was I just talking about here with that? Had an HR as the initials. Not Star Wars, not... High Republic books, yeah! The High Republic books are fantastic. 100% agree. I have the first few on audio. I was listening to them before The Acolyte came out. I really dig them. Really good science fiction, I think. As you were saying about Star Wars fan, yeah. High Republic, there we go. Yeah, High Republic is fantastic. I think the High Republic books are really solid. Took a second for me to realize. I don't know why I was thinking like Harry Potter. I think it was because of the hashtag on Twitter today about J.K. Rowling. But anyway, let's just, human resources. Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking of too. The human resources books. Anyway, let's just jump into this Nerdrotic video as our first sampling of the day.
Cultural critics like the critical drink.
Let me move this around a little bit so we have a center frame here. So yeah, we're reacting right now to a video titled "Everyone Hates the Acolyte as much as Disney hates Star Wars." That's a little hyperbolic, but let's find out what he's saying. Let's start at the beginning here.
Cultural critics like the Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic have dubbed the show lore-breaking for its recent revelations, but their commentary isn't productive. Rather, it encourages bigotry and hatred over a show that's just getting started.
What?
It encourages bigotry and hatred over a show that's just getting started.
What the fuck? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. So, it's obviously a Looper clip. And Looper, they're going to say a lot of things in the most simplified fashion to avoid controversy, but also stir up controversy. That's just how these mills work. But let's see what the reaction is going to be. Let's see the non-bigoted reaction. Because obviously they're saying that the counterpoint to this would be that there's no bigotry in terms of criticism of the new Acolyte. So I'm hoping that this is a not racist, not bigoted response to as a review. Let's find out.
Power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Okay, some headlines.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many. Nerdrotic.
Nerdrotic.com.
Okay.
I didn't want to make this video, but considering the events of the last week where we found out that The Acolyte isn't ruining Star Wars, we are, and that's the royal we, by the way, the 14% audience score should be embarrassing for the reviewers and apparently the critical drinker and yours truly through our reviews of a poorly written streaming show are fostering hatred and bigotry. Keeping all that in mind, I have decided...
How much do you think he spends on all the figures behind him? That's a lot of money right there. Like, I'm not even going to bother figuring that one out. Oh, thank you for the super chat, David Deister. I would hope that Rey is killed off. I just hate the character and I have no faith in her whatsoever. I never trusted Rey and I never will. I will never forgive her for killing Luke Skywalker. Rey doesn't kill Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker sacrifices himself using the Force. But, I mean, personally, I don't feel particularly strongly about Rey that way. I think she's interesting as a character. I think there's room to improve her character. I hope they improve her character. Because I feel like the Rise of Skywalker did her no favors as a character. But I always thought the characters with the most potential were Finn and Kylo Ren. That's why I hope they... I mean, Kylo Ren, obviously, his arc is complete, but I would love to see Finn more, honestly. I mean, eventually, here's the thing with Star Wars. You watch it long enough, all your favorite characters die eventually, so it all works out. You just keep watching, eventually they'll kill them off. Anyway, I do love this faux example of, like, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to make this video. But he's going to make money off of this, so of course he wanted to make this video. But let's see what he has to say.
To reconsider and apologize. For nothing. Let's talk about The Acolyte Episode 4.
Okay, so, what episode? All right.
Previously on The Acolyte.
You lost your entire family. Your mothers, your sister.
I carried them. I created them.
The power of one. The power of two. The power of many.
Where is their father?
They have no father.
Is there any reason for this? Oh, there we go. Let me add subtitles so you guys can see what they're saying. In case for whatever reason, the language isn't loud enough. I'm also going to run this a little faster because I feel like we have so much we have to get through. So I'm going to run at 1.25 speed. Just because we have a lot of videos to get through and want to make sure we get through all of them.
Ascension is about walking through fear. It is about sacrificing a part of yourself. The power of many instead of the power of one.
I don't get that joke. It's because of collectivism and like communism. That's, I don't know. I mean, the Force in the original film, it was all about how it connected all beings together anyway. So it doesn't make any sense there.
Time to die.
The Acolyte Episode 4 is thankfully a very short 27 minutes and 11 seconds, not counting the previously on in credits, which quite frankly isn't enough to review, but thanks to The Acolyte's lead actress Amandla Stenberg providing us with some bonus content, now there is. The Acolyte Episode 4 Day.
Why? I don't get... What does that have to... I don't know. I don't get it.
Is filled with slow-moving establishing shots, multiple exposition scenes, characters slowly walking down hallways or slowly walking up to doors, characters talking to each other and not making much sense, and we're gonna skip all that. It opens up with an establishing shot of planet Gobbledygook where we find the Wookiee cooking and possibly investigating the lesbian space witches. Man, at least we get to see a Jedi-Wookiee fight, right? Can't wait for that. This is followed by a scene with Osha, who is coincidentally...
I'll give him that. I did want to see... I did want to see the Wookiee fight. That was kind of disappointing. I was hoping to see some fighting going on, but again, maybe we'll see it in a flashback. Who knows?
Trained to put out fires in space, crushing on X-23. And who couldn't see this coming with a Disney Star Wars product? Two young girls crushing on each other after roughly 4 minutes of screen time together. Now, to be fair to the House of Mouse, if they break up next episode, it checks out. Jedi Master...
What? I mean, here's the thing. I know that Daphne Keane said that she was playing the character as though she was flirty, but there's not really... My problem with that scene is it's so stiff. You know, the dialogue is very stiff in that scene. The acting, they're trying their best with the lines, but I don't really see any flirting there. It doesn't make sense to me. I think I don't know. I think he might be reading... I mean, I know that that's what Daphne Keane said, but I think he might be reading too much into that scene.
Nepo does some girl bossing and quickly assesses that May was trained by a Jedi. How? From this hologram. The nepotism is strong with this one, but I'm not really sure how she figured it out. Maybe it was these awesome Jedi moves.
I don't know. he's talking about. They conclude that she must have been trained by a Jedi because she can use the Force. Like, that's been established since episode 1, that they use the Force, and people saw this person use the Force. That's how they narrowed it down to Osha and May, because Osha because she can use the Force. Also, I'm going to point out that the actress Mandela, they are a non-binary actor, so I'm going to try to refer to them as they as much as possible.
Then Jedi Master Nepo spends the rest of the scene trying to figure out what the hell Jedi Master Soul is saying.
May's objective is not solely her own.
Wait a second, hang on. He's just making fun of his accent. Okay. I mean, didn't you start this review saying you weren't you like throw out? What am I doing? Expecting cohesion here. The problem is he starts off saying that people aren't being racist, and then makes fun of a man's natural accent. So, you know.
And despite absolutely nothing happening in this episode, Leslie Headland wouldn't want to miss an opportunity to once again take George Lucas's lore to Harvey's couch. Hey, remember the guy who said this in The Phantom Menace?
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
This is Jedi Master Conehead, or Ki-Adi-Mundi, who wasn't supposed to be born at this time until, of course, Disney Star Wars decided to retroactively destroy more lore. And honestly, that...
I mean, again, that was the old Legends canon. Everything got tossed out anyway. So it was never in the films. Only the films were kept. So who cares? And the funny thing I think about that clip that they showed with Ki-Adi-Mundi saying the Sith had been seen 1,000 generations, he's wrong. The first line of dialogue that establishes him shows he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So why does anyone care if he's screwed up again in the past? Amandla is she, they. Okay, so she is... Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
That's the least of this scene's problems, because apparently there's a deleted scene out there where, after saying that the Sith have been extinct for a millennium, he follows that up with, except for that time we ran across a coven of lesbian space witches where 2 of them managed to conceive twin daughters without a father, who incidentally didn't look anything like their mother. I mean, where are the horns? But they were created by this thing called the Thread. So that really Dark Lord-looking dude...
That's not the Sith, though. The witches are not Sith. They established that. In fact, the word Sith has not been stated once in the show so far. So anyone who says, like, oh, Sith have been seen for 1,000 years. What about the time a few decades before? It's like, well, it's because they're not the Sith. At least the Jedi don't think they're the Sith. So that's what matters right there.
Carrying around a red lightsaber who trained May couldn't possibly be a Sith. It's not important. Please keep in mind this is the same Disney Star Wars that's been destroying George Lucas's lore for years and doing things like having Han Solo walk into a lightsaber, Luke Skywalker overdosing on the Force, Princess Leia died, not really sure how. Somehow Emperor Palpatine returned, and their one-hit series is a repurposed Boba Fett and a repurposed Yoda. And when they got around to doing a Boba Fett series, they made him Boba Fett.
And I tried to cut back on the beers so the stomach wouldn't be out too far.
And then there's Obi-Wan Kenobi, whose sole purpose was...
This is really bad criticism right now. All he's talking about is the other Star Wars shows. Like, all he's talking about is like how, remember, like he spent like, you know, like 3 minutes of the video talking about doing a flashback of the previous episodes and showing headlines from other publications. He spent a few minutes making jokes about the actors, and then he's making connections, talking about, Disney ruined these other Star Wars things. Like, talk about the show. Talk about the one episode. Just keep focused, man.
To watch Luke Skywalker until Disney Star Wars got a hold of him, and he decides to...
And also, like, making fun of the actors, making fun of Carrie Fisher dying. I mean, making light of it, I should say. Not making fun. He's not making fun. He's making light of Carrie Fisher's death, which I think is also kind of messy for a lot of reasons. Problem is, there's not much actual reviewing going on in the show. He says, the dialogue doesn't do anything, so I skipped it. Well, maybe if you listen to the dialogue, you might have followed the plot more, but I don't know. I digress.
Off twice to fight Darth Vader twice and not mention it later, meet a toddler Princess Leia that Princess Leia fails to mention later, and the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi had a real hard time getting through a gate he could clearly walk around, and Ahsoka being alive to usurp Luke Skywalker's story. In other words, it's on brand for modern Disney.
Wait, how does Ahsoka usurp Luke's story? How's that? That doesn't make any sense. She has her own story she's doing.
Lucasfilm. Anyway, Sol and Jedi Master Nepo devise a plan to once again use Osha as bait to draw out May. And this brings us to the most poignant scene in all of The Acolyte, the use of pronouns in live-action Disney Star Wars.
Is he or they with us?
And the rest of the 27...
You're talking about the gerbil. You talk about an alien gerbil. Who cares? Here's the thing also about the gerbil, right? Whose name I am not going to look up because I don't care. It's an alien gerbil. It's a little guy, a little silly guy. Hey, who the hell knows what it is? You know? And again, what's funny is later on in this episode, the one guy, the childhood friend, refers to that tracker as he. So it's just Osha not knowing what this thing's gender is. That's it. That's all it is. It's one of those things where it's like, you see that and you're like, okay, it's just awkward confusion. It's not simple. It's not meant to be anything significant. And you move on. And again, they're characters who do not have traditionally male or female features already in Star Wars. Like half the aliens are like a big blob thing with like weird tentacles coming out of its head. Can you tell if it's male or female? I sure can't tell. Alien life forms do not conform strictly to Earth standards, you know? If you look at, so for example, fungus, right? Fungus exhibit thousands of sexes because they do not really conform to XY, XX chromosomes, our gender, societal structure, and things like that. They exist beyond all that. So you can't really say, oh, hey, is this male? Is this female? It's a unusual organism that you can't understand because it's outside your normal scope of understanding. And the good thing about Star Wars is all these cultures blend together, so they have to be respectful of the other cultures. So yeah, they is like the least odd thing in Star Wars. You go to the cantina and you think all of those were strictly in the male-female binary, forget it.
Minute episode is spent with the clueless Jedi in a race to get to Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, before Asian Ezra Miller and May. Then we get a heel turn that might give you whiplash. May is good now. You heard me right.
I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to kill a Jedi without a weapon. I don't need to keep this deal. What? Osha being alive changes everything. My loyalty is to Osha, not your master. What I'm going to do is surrender myself to Kelnaka and then turn myself into the Jedi.
That's not really good or evil. It's just her loyalties are to Osha, and Osha can't stand her because Osha blames May for destruction of their entire family unit. So it's not like she's switching sides. She's switching sides because she's only been on one side this whole time. And she's operated this whole time under the belief that her sister was dead. So obviously, the moment that changes, her entire viewpoint is going to change. It's an alliance of convenience, not an alliance of like actual loyalty. And that's what I think people are confused by. But again, you know, who cares, right? Super chat. Myeonyan, thank you for the super chat. Is it wrong to assume all of these right-wing grifters are mostly just red letter media wannabes, but are particularly terrible at it? I think they're kind of more like the people red letter media made fun of in their like if you watch their I know they're making fun of John Campea and those guys too, but like you look at the setup for the fake fan podcast they do, it's the same as this guy's background. Right? It's all an array of different figures. It's all of that. They're talking about, you know, how, it's ruined our childhoods. Oh, it's so great. You know, it's just, you know, and again, there's the joke of like, don't think, just consume product. This is kind of that, except in this case, they're consuming the product to get angry about it, but still consuming the same product. At the end of the day, it's still the same concept. Not really critically assessing anything. They're just picking out highlights to make fun of, and they're taking it out of context because it's easier to make fun of that way. But again, what are you going to do?
Kidding. And this shouldn't surprise anyone. Nobody thought that diverse female antagonist was actually going to be evil. Of course she's going to be oppressed somehow, and her actions will be justified, even being responsible for the death of 2 Jedi.
Down with the patriarchy.
And leave it to a Disney...
Again, he's not really talking about the show. He's talking about like his perceptions of the culture war, and he's applying it to the show. Like, and again, the problem here is, you know, she still killed 2 Jedi. Like, just because she's jumping on Osha's side doesn't mean Osha's going to forgive her, and doesn't mean the Jedi are going to forgive her. I mean, sure, Soul might try to keep her safe, but that's about it. And that's about it. And again, the problem is, what I want to emphasize with all this is that these reviews aren't really talking about the show. They're talking about the culture war and how the show fits their stencil version of that. That's what I'm trying to get at with this.
Star Wars Gen Z villain to give up on revenge because it's hard. This brings us to Kelnaka, the Jedi Wookiee, arguably the most compelling thing about this series. It would have been awesome to see him fight, right? Well, he dies off screen. And what was the reason we didn't get to see a Jedi Wookiee fight? The budget. Listen, guys, they only had $180 million. What do you expect? And after sitting through 27 minutes and 11 seconds of an episode that felt like it was 2 hours long, you would think this Disney Star Wars intricately written story would lead to something after we had 2 girls crushing on each other, pronouns in space, and a Wookiee Jedi killed off screen. Nah, Smilo Ren shows up and pushes a bunch of Jedi. And the big mystery.
He has to add sound effects to make it the idea of a dark side force user basically force pushing everyone aside, not being somewhat interesting at the very least.
3 to the 5s and 10s of people who are actually interested in the show is, who is Smilo Ren? Is it Asian Ezra Miller? It could be, but I'm leaning towards something like this. Credit to Disney Star Wars for not making an episode as bad as the previous. The good news with The Acolyte, we're halfway through the season. The bad news, we're only halfway through the season. And just when you think things couldn't get worse for Lucasfilm, they do. Series star Amandla Stenberg, who has the amazing ability to play 2 characters exactly the same way with the exact same haircut, decided to come out with a diss track against Star Wars fans. A diss track that Amandla feels so strongly about that she's copyright claiming absolutely everyone who posted on X.
I don't care about that then. We playing that? Okay. Oh, Kyla Bones, thank you for Super Chat. I really hate how people don't have a personal relationship with a piece of media anymore. They just parrot any opinions they see online, and people like Nerdrotic thrive because of this. Yeah, and that's something I want to accomplish with this stream and the video I'm going to post next week when I finish all of it. And again, just so you know, this video will be incorporated into that stream, this stream will be incorporated into that video. Strike that, reverse it. And we'll be going to that too. But the problem is, I think we're going to see a lot of the same talking points echoed in the reviews we watch after this. Now, I want to stop a second and talk about this for a second. They've gone through the whole episode, right? About 8 minutes into a 12-minute video, he's done talking about the episode. It took about 4 minutes to get started. And I think we actually started, how long was it when we stopped? So we started about 2.5 minutes into the video. So, what's that? 2.5 minus 8. We're looking at 5.5 minute review. Where he talked about pronouns, possible flirting, characters who have accents, characters switching sides, how great it would be if the Wookiee could fight, and really he tried to make fun of the bad guy's entrance without really explaining why it was bad. Didn't talk about the character, didn't talk about the plot, didn't talk about the scene with the giant bugs growing off the tree trunks, which was kind of cool, I thought. Not talking about any of the characters' motivations or anything like that. He's just kind of throwing ideas out there. And it's obviously going to be okay, let's place a bet right now. Obviously the masked guy is what's the character's name? Amitri, the guy who's with Osha, the guy who looks like Ezra, a little bit like. I'll give him this. He does look a little bit like Ezra Miller, a little bit. The guy who looks like Ezra Miller. He's obviously the bad guy because he's at the spot when he needed to be at the spot. He was on the planet when he needed to be on the planet. He's the only character who was not present in the big lineup of characters when everyone else that we've been introduced to so far were. So it's obviously him. Oh wow. Oh, thank you, Jermaine Andre. What's your full name? I can't see the full name on here. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for your voice, man. I feel like Star Wars fans have been in an uproar since Finn took his helmet off and the revealing of Rey. However, people complain about Return of the Jedi, the prequels, and almost everything afterwards. And yes, 100% this. The problem is, if you watch a few years ago, back in 2010, there was a documentary that came out called The People versus George Lucas, where it was about how George Lucas ruined Star Wars and destroyed everything, yada, yada, yada. I watched that when I was in college, and I was thinking, oh, yeah, I'm with you there. George Lucas really ruined those movies. And then you come back a few years later, all the same people, like a bunch of the same people who were interviewed in that documentary are now saying, oh, the Disney ruined Star Wars. They destroyed George Lucas's perfect vision. And I'm like, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you were just saying George Lucas ruined everything. It's really funny, I think, how short memory is on the internet, personally. And honestly, Star Wars was ruined back when when Star Wars was ruined was when the holiday special came out, because you saw for the first time that not everything Star Wars related would be good, or even remotely good, or even bad. It would just be terrible. And that was life for a while. When I was a kid, all we had was the Star Wars original trilogy and the Ewok specials. Remember those? Yeah, that's about it. And people complained about Empire Strikes Back in the 1980s. Again, I for my one Star Wars video, I was digging through, and mind you, the Siskel review isn't all negative, but there were negatives that he pointed out and highlighted. Problem is, Siskel also was upset with like basic horror films too, so I don't really take Siskel or Ebert's perspective as gospel truth, but at least they were well phrased about it. When you knew what they meant when they said. Here, there's a transparency to what they're saying. It's kind of, again, he barely talked about the episode in this video, and he's talking about the he's talking about filming Mulan. He's talking about China. Like, there's nothing here that's after this point. There's nothing anything else right here. Oh, who happened to be in that doc? Oh, so Mian, thank you for the super chat. Who happened to be in that doc? Red Light Meteor's Mike's still. Oh, he was in that doc? That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. Red Light Meteor was in that documentary, because that makes a lot of sense. Because they were the big names of Star Wars criticism at that time. That was like, I remember people going like, "Hey, you hear about this guy? He made an 1.5 hour long review of the Empire of Phantom Menace. That's so wild. Why would anyone spend that long with a review?" Times have changed, I guess. But it was really good. And again, the question becomes, a lot of these criticisms are like, why is Rey, why pronouns? Why girls talking? Why mostly people of color in this movie? But again, I think we got to the gist of this video. Let's just keep going in case there's something else, though.
Or YouTube. In what's likely an industry first, a TV show star has written and released a song and a music video complete with dance moves in response to Rey's entire song about it. Now, most of the song is in response to End Wokeness putting up.
This is a clip, by the way, from The Hate You Give. This Twitter account falsely claimed that this, not claimed, I should say. And in this text, this user does not claim that Amanda Steinberg directly said this about white people crying was the goal for the Star Wars Acolyte. It was for The Hate You Give. But again, that's very different, because that's about racism. It's about police brutality. The Hate You Give is a great book, by the way. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic YA book.
An older interview with Trevor Noah where Amanda Stenberg says she wants to make white people cry. That had nothing to do with The Acolyte. Because taking things out of context to support a narrative doesn't help anyone. I want you to remember that. Amanda Stenberg, the adult pretender who's worth $3 million, speaks mostly of oppression in her song, but she also says this. Speaking of which, journalists, I'm looking at you. Did you forget it's your job to provide the truth? Spreading divisiveness, mining the metrics and date. Seem you gave up on all your ethics for money and views. And I can tell you that people are tired. Yes, they are. Because you can absolutely apply what you said there to Disney, the company you work for. And the.
So, again, could you? Disney's not journalists. So what are you going to do? That's the context right there. Does that make sense? I don't think it does.
Kids don't trust anything they view, and you're right. But you don't have to worry about that with The Acolyte because no kids are watching it. Another lyric from the song by adult pretender worth $3 million, Amanda Stenberg. And
so why is he saying adult pretender? That's kind of weird. Like, I don't get what he's implying with that. It doesn't make any sense.
Now you listening, I'm going to tell you something fast.
I don't want to hear him rap. I can tell. Oh, wow. The most replayed is after he stops rapping. I love that.
If you've heard this one before, the same company that thanked a concentration camp in China for Mulan, covered up Chadwick Boseman's face on the Black Panther poster for China, shrunk Finn on the Force Awakens poster.
What does any of this have to do with The Acolyte? What does anything about this have to do with The Acolyte? Yeah, no one's going to say Disney's a great company. Disney's a terrible company. They do a lot of awful things. What does this have to do with the show specifically? You're talking about decisions made by marketing people who are paid a salary by Disney's CEO, and you're saying that somehow conflates with the creative process of a show made. Creative and marketing are two different divisions in the company, specifically overall brand marketing for their films and their TV division. So, by your own logic, this makes no sense. A corporation isn't just one monolith, it's several smaller teams that work collectively for the whole. Comparing what the marketing team did for a Chinese release, so an international marketing team, versus the creative team for The Acolyte, especially specifically the actors, Do you think Amanda Steinberg was involved with the marketing team for a movie that was made 5 years before her? No. Oh, sorry. 10 years before she joined Disney? No, forget about it.
For China, a company well known for providing the discourse and gaslighting what's left of the divided fan.
So wait a second. He's saying China is responsible for Ewan McGregor, Ryan Johnson, and Pablo Hidalgo. Who's Pablo Hidalgo? What's the connection here? People say like leftists draw up all. I mean, people were making fun of Pillar of Garbage a little while back because he rightfully made a video discussing the financial connections between various right-wing organizations, right-wing grifters online, and they're saying, "Oh, he's a conspiracy. He's just putting pins in a board and like tying the string together." But here's him doing the same thing with like less than strings and pins. He's just putting a bunch of screen caps saying China's responsible for divisiveness.
For years. Now, as far as Disney Star Wars is concerned, Amanda, you're just the latest shield they can hide behind to cover for a bad TV show. And your diss track takes things wildly out of context and conflates them to support a narrative. One that calls...
Which one of us just made a review where you said nothing really happens in the show? Here's pronouns without saying who the pronouns are for. Taking things out of context.
Star Wars fans, your potential paying customers, racist, which unfortunately is on brand for modern Disney. Here's how the game plan works. Preemptively attack your fans by calling them racist before your crappy show comes out. The show comes out, everyone says it's crappy. Continue to call the fans racist. One of the stars makes a video calling the fans racist. Access media articles are written in support of the actor calling the fans racist. And then the inevitable support from Disney or Star Wars or both calling the fans racist while supporting the actress. And please tell me when this has ever worked. The Acolyte is the marvels of Star Wars. It was something that was predictably bad. We just didn't know how bad it would be. Recently, a Spaceballs sequel was announced.
What's that have to do with anything? Okay, so here's the thing. The Acolyte currently is on track for being one of the most successful Disney Plus shows of 2024. Let's put aside critical opinion. Put aside any of that. 4 million views for the first 24 hours, roughly, right? So by Disney's metrics, it's a success. They're making money. They're making a profit essentially off of it. The Marvels, unfortunately, was a massive bomb for Disney. One was viewed, one wasn't. The connection only exists because you're saying it has a connection. There's no other connection there. But again, the problem is, of this video, 5 minutes we're talking about the Acolyte. The other 7 were making jokes or talking about Disney as a corporation. So it's not really... And even then, your points were never about this show. It was about, Disney 10 years ago did this. What does that have to do with The Acolyte? Anyway, let's see how it ends.
Then it's well over a decade too late because Disney Star Wars is the parody. And as far as independent reviewers fostering hatred and bigotry, the only ones I see doing that are Disney.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white house.
It's kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken. But
how would they say it?
No way we're hiring a white house.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Look, I don't think there's much to say about that one. Unfortunately, there just wasn't... Let me adjust this a little bit again so you're not seeing all the random things I've liked 5 years ago. No, the problem is just not much there. Like, it wasn't like a particularly strong review of the show. There's not much to discuss. It's just complain about Disney. And Marvel's, as comments are saying, did do well on streaming. So that's a fair thing right there. And again, the problem is it's very unusual. 4 million views is a meh YouTube video, a show with 800... Well, the thing is, it's 4 million views in a day. That's the difference. It's not 4 million views complete. It's 4 million views for the first episode in the first day. So that's substantial. All right, let's find another review to respond to. Hopefully something a little older. Star Wars fans are uniting after The Acolyte. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Star Wars Theory. Claims to be the head of the Star Wars fandom. I'm going to bring up something, too, that I want to just bring up again. Don't worry about me. I'm just bringing something up. It's not a big deal. Sure won't be any big deal whatsoever. Here we go. Yep, this is good. Yep. That's fine. Perfect. Yeah, I'll bring this up later. Don't worry about a thing. I'll bring it in when I'll bring it in when it needs to be brought in. You'll know when. Okay, let's watch the Star Wars theory video. My algorithm's gonna be doomed when this is over. By the way, it's gonna be rough. All right, adjust my face again. Make sure we get all this good. So let's respond to Star Wars. Okay, so his video is titled, "The fans are finally uniting after The Acolyte. Just look at this." Okay, let's look at this. Let's find out. His description is all sale, merch, Spotify podcast episodes, Twitter, merch, Discord, gaming channel, Cobra Kai video. Not really giving us an idea what the video is about based on the description, but I digress. Let's take a look at Theory Sabers. Okay, what's this? Something?
Dude, I haven't seen this many Star Wars fans united since probably either before the last...
Super chat, thank you so much. Joy watch when, Anthony. When? Hopefully soon. I'll get to it, don't worry. Nikosi, thank you for the super chat. Shame Acolyte used the infamous Killmonger cut. Large downgrade from Reva, who I thought was great black rep, and she was allowed to be actually sound black. Yeah, that's a fair point. And Reva was harassed. The actress who played Reva was horribly harassed, I think. And I think Obi-Wan as a show wasn't that great. I think it was all right. I think Reva was a highlight, though. I mean, person has a revenge scheme against Darth Vader. That's fun. That's cool. I like that. I think she should have been in her own show. I think it was a little... I think the Obi-Wan show simultaneously had too many moving parts and too little moving parts. Like, it should have been just one movie, I felt like. I would love to see more Reva, though. I think that you can really do a lot with that character, especially now. Yes, let's keep moving on with this. Let's keep diving right in. So let's see what he says.
Last Jedi or after Mando Season 2.
We've been hearing for a few weeks now that this is going to be the episode that absolutely destroys Star Wars once and for all, and I am here to tell you that it is worse than what we were even expecting.
Episode 3 is causing all kinds of backlash.
Episode 3 of The Acolyte was... So assuming it's episode 3, based on this preamble. Kyla Bones, thank you for the super chat. I love how reactionaries think leftists worship Disney. We hate Disney. It's just we call them bigots for the reasons why they hate Disney, some Disney endeavors. Why they hate some Disney... Oh, sorry. For the reasons why they hate some Disney endeavors. I read that wrong. For reference, I hate Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, exactly. Corporations are not your friend under any circumstances. I don't care what they make. A corporation will never be your friend. They are always going to exploit you and take advantage of you. The creatives in an organization trying to make art through that organization with their resources, that you can admire them. You can respect their creativity. But the corporation, blind obedience to a corporation? Never. Not in a heartbeat. What's funny is so many of these corporations will... Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to get into an anti-capitalist spiel on this podcast. On the podcast. It's not a podcast. On this stream. I think my terms mixed up. Wow, this is a terrible start to this whole thing, isn't it? But again, Star Wars is just that. It's a corporate product. And some creatives involved in that corporate product are making good stuff with it. They're playing in the play box and making something good with it. But that's not to say you have to blindly accept everything. I don't think half of new Star Wars is all that interesting to me personally, but I still think it's worth it. It's worth respecting the creative efforts involved, and it's worth saying, hey, this creator did a good job, or hey, this actor did a good job. But that also isn't a super profitable grift, so clearly I'm not going to get the big grifting bucks by saying Star Wars. It's all right. Anyway. Let's take a step back a sec. Oh, Larry Banks, thank you for the super chat. There is evidence of review bombing as the Acolyte fan film and 2008 Acolytes film, as the IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes audience scores went down. Yes, and not just did they go down, they went down substantially. No one had talked about the Acolytes from 2008, which is a horror film, I think from Australia, at all, in any capacity for about 12, 14 years. All of a sudden, massively review bombed. Just out of the blue. None of this is organic. It's an effort. It's a concentrated effort to put bad reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because people think that affects anything. And every one of these videos will point, oh, look, 13% of Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score. Well, the only people believing reviews are the people angry about it. And again, I mentioned at the start of the stream. In fact, I can bring it in right now. I might as well. I was going to bring it in later, but I feel it's relevant. This Forbes article came out earlier today. I'm going to take a screenshot real quick of this, actually. just for a reference point later on. So, The Acolyte has had more audience reviews than 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, collectively. Let's take a look right here. So the idea, it's anyone who says it's not being review bombed, look at these numbers here. This is across a bunch of different platforms in terms of written reviews, not in terms of like 1-star reviews, just written reviews. So we are a few episodes into The Acolyte, right? 4 episodes in at this point. The Acolyte has 25,000 written reviews that are on it. The Mandalorian, across 3 seasons, so that's about like 4 years, has 17,500. Obi-Wan, which was widely disliked by a large portion of fans, had 10,000. The Clone Wars, the longest-running show that Star Wars ever did, 6,000. Ahsoka, 5,000. Book of Boba Fett, 2,500. And Rebels, 2,000. That's 1 week. Now, in terms of IMDb scores, 58 of its 66,000 reviews, that's 39,000 reviews right there, are negative, or 1. So, problems there. Kind of comes across that maybe slightly review bombed. Especially the extreme. So it's not, if it was bad, usually you see some 1s, some 2s, some 3s. This is like sharp, just 1, went to the bottom of the list, and that's where you can tell it's obvious that there's some tampering being done. And everyone can see it, but a lot of grifters would like to pretend it's not really happening. So it can't be real, it's not really happening, who cares, right? Well, I don't really care. It doesn't. Rotten Tomatoes scores don't affect me whatsoever. Even the stuff I like, I don't care. We get 2 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. In fact, you know what I like? I like when a Rotten Tomatoes score, the review is like completely the opposite. Critics love it, audience hate it, or audience loves it, critics hate it. I love that division. That's the best for me. That's when I know I'm going to be in for a treat, something interesting, something to sink my teeth into. That's always fun. Anyway. Yeah, and they probably use bots. Just look for The Acolyte, leave a review. That's why The Acolyte 2008, I hope, is being review bombed, because the alternative is that human beings are leaving reviews on it, and that makes it just worse. Really makes you question human intelligence when they can't tell the difference between a Star Wars TV show and an indie art house film from Australia from 2008. Can't tell the difference there. I don't think you should be watching movies, but I digress. Anyway, back to Star Wars theory.
Was without a doubt one of the most devastatingly embarrassing spectacles I think I've ever witnessed on TV.
Third has hit. I watched it and it's...
Honestly, how can Disney, who actually bought the franchise, and Disney, who should know everything about Star Wars, even understand the fundamental idea of what Star Wars is built on?
Okay, it's a lot.
I used to think that it would take one really great Star Wars project, bring all of us together. But now I realize it takes one really bad Star Wars project to unite so many of us. I remember during the live stream for episode 3 of The Acolyte, there were so many of you at the end that were saying I was totally on board with episode 1 and 2. In fact, I thought all you guys were toxic for not liking it, this and that, but this is too much. I can't take this. This is bullshit. And so many people are now changing tune and kind of waking up. And I think, it's interesting. There's a lot.
I'm sorry, changing tune. The show was getting review bombed from the first episode. What are you talking about, man? There were so many posts about the flames coming out of the ship. Star Wars, how dare it be flames coming out. And in space, so, Star Wars has never broken the laws of physics before, ever. And quite frankly, it's kind of a little ridiculous about that they kind of have this sort of situation going on. They're saying, it wasn't bad before, now it is with episode 3. I'm like, no, you were making fun of this for months. And we can tell you're making fun of it for months because we saw half the videos. It's still online, but whatever.
Line for all of us, and it just depends where that line is for you. For some people, it was like right after The Force Awakens. For some people, it was after Mando Season 3. For some people, it was after The Last Jedi. For a lot of people, it's Acolyte Episode 3. And you can see it in the comments, whether it's on X, Twitter, or Instagram, or YouTube. Anything that they are posting right now with The Acolyte, it is getting freaking ratioed like crazy. There are so many people in there. Mind you, I just want to say, when you're exclaiming how you feel, just be respectful about it. And I'm very proud of so many people that are doing that. People are just pissed. They are pissed off. They're done with this shit. There's so many people that are like, this is absolute garbage. This is not right. This is not George Lucas's Star Wars. And it's true. It's not.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
I was speaking with Roger Christian, I remember, for episode 4. He was saying how they had such a limited budget for the set.
Let's take a step back a second. They always fetishize George Lucas's Star Wars like it's the height. But, like, I remember 10 years ago where you couldn't get enough of making fun of George Lucas. Again, the people versus George Lucas. Watch it again. It really alters your perception of the modern Star Wars backlash, because it's the same thing. Everything they're saying now, they said then too, but now they're like praising the prequels and hating the new stuff. So, CoCG, thank you for Super Chat. I'm deep in the High Republic fandom, and yeah, show is hated. And that's fair, you know? The show isn't great. It's just all right. It's an okay whatever show. People will live. It's not the end of the world. But, like, the High Republic books are fantastic. If you haven't read those yet, those are really solid sci-fi books. But again, the problem is with this discussion that it's being ratioed. This is the metric of quality. Who's online? Who is the one responding? It's not most mainstream audiences look at a piece of marketing and they go, okay, it's a piece of marketing, they move on with their lives. They may remember, Star Wars came out, isn't it? I'll watch the new one on Disney Plus later. A normal person thinks that way. They'll go, new Star Wars thing. I'll check it out later, maybe, or not, whatever. People who are like, okay, or not plugged in, they're not really going to care. Keep in mind, Twitter is maybe about 30 million people at most, and it's only gotten more frustrating since Elon Musk took over and like the whole site is like glitchy and everything. People are leaving Twitter. But even then, I remember a year or two ago, people were blindsided when the most popular show on TV wasn't whatever Twitter was talking about, it was Yellowstone. A show that no one really talked about on Twitter outside of niche communities, but it was huge outside of that because the universe of movie audiences, they're not really the ones who are plugged into Twitter, not watching these videos. Most people who watch movies don't pay attention to what they say online. A few years ago, Disney lost I think it was upwards towards like 30 million subscribers in like a short period of time. And all these people online were going, oh, it's because Star Wars. Oh, it's because Disney. It's because of Marvel, whatever. It's because they stopped having cricket. The sport, cricket. Disney stopped, lost its license, let the license expire in India or in South Asia. And all the people who subscribed for Disney just to watch cricket, they immediately stopped subbing. And that ended that. Problem is, the reasons why people react to me the way they do, it's very rarely for the reasons we think of it as. We're very limited in our little pool. The world is much bigger, and our limited critical perspective, even the bad faith and the good faith critics, it's very limited. What we actually see. That's why stuff like Red Notice, where you make fun of, it's the most watched movie in the world. Like, yeah, it probably was. People probably just let it run, or watched it, and it's like, there was a video I saw recently where, was it Red Notice? Yeah, Red Notice, the one with Ryan Reynolds and The Rock and Gal Gadot. When that was first marketed, another movie with the same title became the most popular movie on Netflix that weekend, because people saw the trailer online or heard about it, went to look it up, and just watched it, or watched enough of it to be kind of as a view. And all of that is reflective of how disconnected we are as critics. Because no one online was talking about Red Notice or that other movie, but Netflix noticed because people were watching it. That's something to consider. So when you talk about, on Instagram it's being ratioed, no one cares. Disney doesn't care. They care who watches. And honestly, you ratioing their social media actually keeps them in discussion longer. Because all these people, they're going to watch this. All right. It's my first time watching live. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Doing okay. Looking at a few comments right here. Where Yellowstone seasons, I think there are 4 seasons that show me 5. There's also spin-offs that aren't named Yellowstone directly that exist. They're pretty. One is Harrison Ford. Yellowstone's pretty big. I don't think people could love Kenobi but hate The Acolyte. Yeah, I don't know either. I think Kenobi is much weaker than The Acolyte. People claim they are done with Star Wars are going to come back to it when the Skeleton Crew comes out. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. all the people leaving ratios and all that on Star Wars on their social media platforms, they're watching these episodes the minute they air. All of them. It's the ordinary people you got to get in the fold. That's the problem. Hardcore fans, they'll watch it no matter what. Even if they hate it, they're going to watch it. So there you go.
It's for everything, and they made everything look like it was literally from a galaxy far, far away. They were just so lazy. They had no vision whatsoever. Remember when the Wookiee was in the middle of the field? There was nothing else. Lazy, that design. Mind you, the Wookiee looks like Harry and the Hendersons. He looks like freaking Harry in the movie. Why would you not make it look like Chewbacca? Why?
Hang on, let's take a look at that a little more. So let's look at
Hendersons. He looks like freaking...
Not really. They don't look that much alike. He looks like a Wookiee. I don't see the connection there. Like, here's the thing. You look at this right here. Harry and Henderson's, a lot of skin exposed, right? This, all fur. Got your Yorkshire Terrier Wookiee right here with enough fur to go down the scale of his head. This, however, a lot of skin, flared nostrils, more of a beard shape, more like a very hairy Robin Williams aesthetic. That's terrible. I'm sorry. It's not true. Oh, my goodness. Kicking. All right. Kick. Looks like someone's causing problems in the chat. Oh, someone's saying show. Oof. Okay, buddy. That's quite enough of you there. Quite enough of you there. Oh, that's just weird, man. Gonna open up my stream real quick. I have to mute this. Oh yeah, there's someone here. I'm gonna put you in timeout there, buddy. All right, sounds good. Cool. Yep, I'm not so sure about that right now. Oh, wow. Okay, that's weird. I have on one screen now. I chat because I'm still getting used to this chat and all that. But yep, I just took him out of there. He's hidden. You can't see him anymore. I just don't think anyway. All right, cool. Yeah, someone starts saying. I mean, listen. You're allowed to say crap in my chat. You can make fun of me all you want. When we start throwing around language like that, you're out of here. Yeah, again, listen. I don't care if you like EFAP or not. I personally don't care all that much. But if you're a jerk in my chat, I'm going to take you out of there. All right? Good. Again, yeah, the beard color. That's about it. There's no lips. Again, it's Yorkshire. It looks like a Yorkshire Terrier. And anyway, let's move on with this.
Freaking Harry in the movie. Why would you not make it look like Chewbacca? Why does he have this giant troll head? What are they doing, man? I don't think they have a clue. It all comes down to Leslie Headland, and it all comes down to Kathleen Kennedy.
All right, hang on a second. Let's take a step back here. He's complaining about, the show's so bad, la la la. Look at this Wookiee here. Look how bad he looks. Looks like a Wookiee. I don't see the problem. You know who's at fault? Kathleen Kennedy for the makeup department messing up. Kathleen Kennedy, who's clearly on set every day. She has little clippers clipping the Chewbacca's face, come on. Let's keep going here. And let's keep it civil in the chat. I don't want to give EFAP any more attention they deserve, but let's go back with this.
Giving her free reign. So, two people that just really, I don't think should be working on Star Wars at all. And my question is, Dave, where are you? Are you approving all this stuff? Do you have power to approve it or disapprove? What's going on here?
Dave Filoni has reviewed every single script for the Acolyte and has approved it. That's been confirmed probably after this. And again, all Wookiees aren't supposed to look alike. Chat, Gino Taku, that's a good point. Wookiees are a species. Do all people look alike? No. Why would all the aliens look like the same? There can be differences. And that makes things interesting when they look a little different. Online people always forget that the average watch just want to watch what looks good to them. They don't have time to think. They have a life. Yeah, exactly. Listen, brand recognition goes a long way. Average family comes home, maybe from like a sporting event. They want to put something on TV. Maybe it's a Sunday night. They want to put some shows on. Whatever. Kids had homework that weekend. What's on Disney Plus? Oh, a new Star Wars thing. Let's put that on. Why not? So even like the first day ratings aren't even a good reflective of what's popular on the platform, because people sometimes watch these shows later in the day, and some people like binge watching after they're all done. So whatever. I don't like doing that. I think anyway. So yeah, Dave Filoni, he's approved every script we're talking about here. So his whole Dave, where are you, Dave? He's working on the show. He has more a handle on The Acolyte than Kathleen Kennedy does. So, again, I don't care if you don't like The Acolyte. It's all right, I think. But if you're gonna direct criticism, direct it at the people who actually were involved with the show, like Dave Filoni, who again, he's the head of all that TV stuff with Star Wars, with Lucasfilm.
I'm very confused because none of this is. I mean, bro, you go look at the comments on some of these. It's war. People are pissed off, and I keep away. I don't even comment, man. You guys are doing enough work there, and this was.
I keep away. I've read all of them. I keep away though.
Their last post, they were like, okay, you know what, we're gonna post something that has to do with the prequel trilogy because we're just getting absolutely destroyed. But here's the thing, the numbers game that many people don't understand. I'm sure in the coming months, once they start releasing numbers for The Acolyte, what they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, it did so well, and they're smart. They're capitalizing on the fact that it's so controversial by spamming the shit out of our feeds with Acolyte stuff because they know people are angry, so they're gonna comment that it's shit, but that drives engagement up. And when you drive engagement up, your posts get seen more and more and more because these companies like social media, like, Meta, YouTube, whatever. The way it works is if you have more comments, more likes, more engagement, even if it's more dislikes, it still drives the video into your main screen, your main page, your home page. Same with Instagram and Facebook and all this other stuff. That's how it works. So the like and dislike button is kind of like a joke. It's like, okay, yeah, we want you to vote, but whatever you do, it's going to drive engagement up regardless. People are probably going to see The Acolyte more than any other thing because they just want to see how bad it actually is. They may even say, hey, look, we had how... I
want to stop a second there because he actually has a point there. I will give credit when credit is due. All the engagement does drive this information into your feeds. People who are plugged into Star Wars, they're going to watch the show anyway. Regardless of what happens, they've already watched it. Disney is more interested in the opinions of people who are outside the fandoms. Because extreme fans are either going to worship the ground it walks on or they're going to hate it. Regardless. And the loud vocal minority are always going to be the loudest and the biggest in engagement. And because they engage, they're going to ramp things up and push it into the mainstream perspective. So, again, this is going to cause a lot of things. And again, let's take a step back as well. Before The Acolyte, what was the most popular Disney Plus show of 2024? It was Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, then followed by Echo and then X-Men 97, were the most popular original Disney Plus programming of 2024. And I guarantee you that everything that you can say about The Acolyte, you can say about half of which to Echo. I think Echo was actually a really good show, by the way. I think Echo was really solid. I think Percy Jackson was just as solid. But again, it's because it appealed to a demographic outside of this fandom. It appealed to the general audiences. And with all of the negative feedback going to The Acolyte, this show is now being discussed outside of these circles. I went to a party for family. I think it was Father's Day party. There we go. And people were asking me if I'd seen The Acolyte. Granted, they hadn't seen it yet. They were kind of figuring out, do I want to watch the show? Do I not? I said, yeah, it's all right. It's nothing special, but if you like Star Wars, you'll enjoy it well enough. So again, it's becoming a topic of discussion for people outside of the extreme fandom, in part due to the social media pressure being placed on it. So yeah, in this sense, he is correct. No matter what you do, you're playing the mouse's game. And what they say about Vegas is the house always wins. The house of the mouse will always win this game if you're playing their game, which everyone is. Even all this discussion about review bombing, it's playing to Disney's hand, because now it's controversial. Now it's edgy. Now it's something. It's an event of some kind, and they love that. No one cared about Secret Invasion, the Marvel thing that came out last year, because it wasn't important. But people talk about Star Wars whenever anything Star Wars related comes out, even if it's just to complain.
Record-breaking views for the show, blah, blah, blah. But, it's a train wreck. Everyone wants to see a train wreck, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good project. So, man, I don't know what to even say, but I'm pretty dumbfounded at how this horrible project has brought so many of us together. And it's nice to see, finally, in the Star Wars fandom. And thank you to everyone who's been sharing my photos on TikTok and stuff, and those have been going viral, which is crazy. It's nice to get the love. It's nice to get the appreciation that, we are standing for something, which is George Lucas Star Wars, and will not be silenced, and we'll always speak our minds and be passionate about this galaxy far, far away that we love. And that's, at the end of the day, all we're really talking about and all we really stand for, all we care about. So, keep making noise, keep doing your thing. We're being heard for sure, obviously, but be respectful. Always be polite, always be respectful, be a gentleman about everything, and get your point across eloquently and kindly and respectfully, because that's the best way to do it and to be heard. So, love you all. Pretty cool. And see you in the next video.
So, it's interesting he's saying be respectful, because at this exact same time, that was June 16th, right? That was 9 days ago. The Wikipedia editors were being harassed for changing the date of Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth. Was it? No, was that actually? No, I lied. That's not true. This was the day before that happened, actually, where Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth came out. So this is episode 3, right? So let's see how. So let's keep that in mind. Be respectful. All that messaging. Okay. Let's see what he said the day after that the episode came out. Oh, and he already has a watch party set up for the new episode 5. So again, anyway. Media, don't care about that. Nice Sith return of the Acolyte. That's a what? These are skits. That's weird. Watch that potential lawsuit against Wikipedia. Okay, I want to get to that next. Let's see his reaction to Ki-Adi-Mundi right here. Yeah. So the thing is, he wants to say respectful, be respectful. I'm gonna play 2 more videos. I think that really shows the evolution of his respectful perspective on this. Let's take a look right here. Let's see if he stays respectful.
Oh boy, episode 4 of The Acolyte. There's a lot of ways for me to do this breakdown. We can jump right in, go scene for scene, and get into it, which we're going to do in maybe a little bit. But I first want to address the elephant in the room. They brought Ki-Adi-Mundi back. The episode is essentially a long hike for both parties. May and Star Wars Snape, Potions Master, and the Jedi hoping to find her. Now, there's a lot of different things in this episode that really contradict not just Star Wars as a whole, but even previous episodes of The Acolyte. I thought the last week took the cake for the most lore-breaking cringe that I've ever seen in Star Wars. But this week seems to do something else interesting.
You know, so they kind of always just say it's lore breaking, but never really explain what the lore really broke. And I mean, you know what? I'll get to those videos later. Maybe they explain there. Who knows?
As well. Bringing in the man who defies this entire show by his line in The Phantom Menace.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
Wait, let me boost the subtitles up here. 1 second. Closed captioning. And let's see this. It's still 1.2. Okay, cool.
The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Hoping to add a level of acceptance if he's involved in this show. Because
well, hang on a second. Ki-Adi-Mundi said that and he was wrong. The joke is he's wrong. He's never been right about anything. That's the whole thing.
Obviously, you know, him having said that line is a big detractor in this show's possibility. But if he's in the show, it retracts any...
Yeah, but he's wrong. And listen, dude, your whole thing is you're a Star Wars fan. They don't say Sith once in this whole show so far. Maybe episode 5 they'll mention Sith, but not yet. Oh, CoCG, thank you for the super chat. He's right. By accident, the High Republic book lore is smashed. Yeah, I can see that. I can see book lore being smashed. Terminal Sanity, also thank you for the super chat. Star Wars works when the writing gives a solid actors compelling characters. With good character moments between the fantastical action beats. Yeah, exactly. I think, personally, the writing in The Acolyte is one of the weaker bits. I think a lot of the writing is kind of iffy, but I also feel like it's going to be one of those things where, like, when the show's over, we're going to reevaluate what happened. If the mystery that they're building up to is successful, then I think it's going to retroactively make the earlier episodes more palpable, more powerful. If the mystery fails to stick the landing, it's going to make a lot of what came before seem meandering and weak. A good mystery is defined by its ending. If the ending is good, shortcomings at the start are forgiven, and the show, you see the teases and the pieces building to something more in hindsight. If the resolution is bad, it's going to be a mess. And it's possible this could be a failure. Who knows? But it's going to live or die by its ending, I think, guaranteed. People in chat are saying he did defend the premiere episode. Okay, you know, that's fair.
Claim against what he said in The Phantom Menace, which then in turn makes the show valid.
Hard to see the dark side is.
But no, it only makes matters worse. Not only is Ki-Adi-Mundi knowing about the dying of the Jedi being a major problem, but it's also the fact that he wasn't even born yet. That is, until Wikipedia went in real time during the live stream to quickly change the birth date of Ki-Adi-Mundi in the hopes that no one would notice. When even their own system said that this was an error, I found it to be quite interesting how they quickly added in his birth date.
Well, as we learned later on, let's take a look right there. Ki-Adi-Mundi. The problem is, Ki-Adi-Mundi's birth date was only on the Legends canon.
Error, goddamn, they were quick to get on that one, eh? Look at that, boys.
Someone get in there! We have to update it to Leslie Headland's shit lore that she just created and manipulated.
But then you scroll down to the shit that they updated. The biography was born prior to 132 BBY. Huh? I don't understand. How was he born before 132 BBY? But here they say 93 BBY. Because they just manipulated the system because of a shitty show where the showrunner has no idea what Star Wars is. But
well, hang on.
Thankfully, they left the Legends date. That just doesn't matter. Because whatever...
Yeah, because Legends is the canon where they establish his birth date. It's not in the current canon, so it was changed. That's how lore works.
Leslie Headland says now, this canon. If he's not alive, I'll make it happen. In fact, let's just add an extra 40 years. Anyways, the Jedi and
again, who cares? You know? It's not that big a deal. It really doesn't matter how old the alien with the big elongated head is. And again, he's pointing fingers at the Wikipedia staff, making fun of them, and he's making fun of the showrunner again, which is, I mean, listen, again, be respectful, right? Be respectful, be respectful. He immediately makes fun of everyone involved. So, again, what are you going to do?
End up having a meeting, and they discuss May as the one who killed the two Jedi Masters. They realize Sol didn't tell them that the twin sister of Osha exists, and has spent the last 17 or so years training under a Force user they assume is a Jedi of their own. Now, Ki-Adi-Mundi is there, even though he isn't supposed to be born yet for another 39, 40 years. But hey, who cares? Let's just throw him in and change his info so that when he dies in Revenge of the Sith, he's more like 110 instead of 70, like what was originally established. All to just retract his line in The Phantom Menace. Because if he's here, it all makes sense then. He's the key to making this show plausible. But let me tell you guys something.
Well, again, this whole criticism depends on how the Acolyte fits into the prequels, right? I don't really care about that. I don't care if you could break the canon directly. I wouldn't care as long as the show's good. Break canon if it's a good show. I don't care. I think an individual show should be judged on the merits of its own storytelling, not in how it connects to someone else's story. But again, playing in someone else's rule box, lore fitting makes sense. But so right now, all he's saying is, "Hey, this was done to give the show credibility." Does it? Only hardcore Star Wars fans know the guy even exists. The average family with 2.5 kids, they're going to watch that and they might even know who the alien with the big tall head is. So, and again, 40 years for the alien. You see, listen, if there are retcons in continuities involving immortal races where they change ages by hundreds of years, no one cares. It was a retcon in Marvel Comics that Galactus was born before the Big Bang. We're talking of billions and billions of years in terms of age changes. No one cared. A weird alien that no one liked who was old already by the time the Phantom Menace started, being a few years older, whatever. Who cares? It's an alien. It's a weird alien who's a Force user. He's meant to be a master, so he has to be old already to know how to use the Force. How old are aliens in Star Wars? Who knows? Wookiees can live hundreds of years. Why would it have to be 70 as opposed to 150? Or 100 or 300 for that matter? It actually makes more sense for Mundi to be very old since he's in the council. You know? And that makes Obi-Wan actually look better because, hey, he's a young 40 and he's a 35, whatever. And he's already part of the Jedi Master's Council. Whereas this guy had to train for like 100 years to get there. It actually makes your heroes look better by comparison. But again, what are you going to do? I'm seeing in the comments people mention The Evil Dead. Can you imagine? Can you imagine this level of like lore particularity with the Evil Dead franchise where they remake the first film in the prologue of each of your movies? Oh, they would break in seconds.
Doesn't make it plausible. Him being alive also creates another issue. Well, he just doesn't tell Yoda or the Jedi Masters that there was a twin of a former student of the Jedi Council that was essentially born exactly like Anakin was when he made fun of Qui-Gon when Qui-Gon came to them saying, I found divergence in the Force, Chosen One prophecy, they all made fun of him, including Ki-Adi-Mundi.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. I don't presume to.
But you do. Oh. Trained as a Jedi, you request for him,
And not only does he know about two children.
That's not really making fun of them, though. They're more annoyed that he's an old student going in to be a Jedi. That's the real point they're making fun of, not the virgin birth element.
Children that were made this way. But he now also realizes that Sith has now been around. A Sith is killing Jedi. And he doesn't even tell anybody about it. And if he does, well, maybe we'll know about it in the next few episodes. But I don't think we know about that in The Phantom Menace, because you can't change that one. The other thing that's weird is that...
Where does the Sith come in? They think it's a rogue Jedi. Or a witch. They don't think it's the Sith. And there's no reason to believe they ever think it's the Sith. Heck, there's no reason to believe it is the Sith, beyond the fact they have a red lightsaber. Which we've seen in other Star Wars lore. People use red lightsabers who aren't Sith.
That he now knows a Jedi Master, which Master Vernestra believes it was a Jedi Master that trained May, has gone rogue. And we don't hear about this at all in The Phantom Menace. And look, I'm all for expanding the stories,
Why would we hear about it in The Phantom Menace? Do you think... Here's a question for you. In an ordinary conversation, at any given point, do you go, hey, do you want to talk about the Korean War? Hey, do you want to talk about Ed Gein? Like, no one. Why would you bring it up unless it mattered to the particulars of the discussion? It's like it doesn't really impact discussion, so why mention it? Why would it come up in conversation organically?
Star Wars, I was very on board with Mando and some of the other projects, but some stuff like this is so not even half baked that you got to sit back and be like, no, that just doesn't work. I'm sorry, that just does not fly. It's just crazy that Ki-Adi-Mundi knows someone has been killing Jedi, and that a Jedi Master has trained her for the last almost 2 decades. And whether he ends up telling Yoda or not, if they want to change that up in the show too, because at this point, why not? It completely detracts from his line in The Phantom Menace, when he and the Council disbelieve a Sith Lord could return.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Because now they know that a red lightsaber wielder, like the one Qui-Gon fought on Tatooine, the same one that Ki-Adi-Mundi doubted, is very much real and happening. Soul asks to bring...
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a Sith. It just means someone with a red lightsaber existed. Meonyan, thank you for the super chat. 500 years ago and more, people fought wars on religious doctrine and canon. Nowadays, fandoms and grifters fight over Star Wars and birth dates. What a future. Yeah, but I'd rather them fight over with words and angry YouTube responses than with swords and gunpowder. One's far less lethal. More annoying, maybe, but nothing more than that. But again, yeah, this is like a religious fervor. The doctrine is changed. This wasn't mentioned in the texts before. Who cares, Again, why would they ever bring up a couple of Jedi being killed by a solitary threat decades later in a context that has no relevance or connection, seemingly, to this event? Now, will the Acolyte tie in with the events of the prequels? Probably. I can see this tying in directly in some cases, but we don't know how yet. And it's presumptuous to assume that it's going to turn out to be a specific way, that Ki-Adi-Mundi will even find out about it. It's possible that every single Jedi in that scene will die and never communicate anything back to Ki-Adi-Mundi, and it'll be covered up in some way. That's possible. And there's no reason why not to believe that might happen. The episode's coming out. Who knows? But again, the presumptuousness here is what I'm having an issue with. These presumptuous elements where they're saying, this guy has a red lightsaber, therefore he must be a Sith, and therefore must connect to this plot point, and that, da-da-da-da. And it's like, does it matter? Is that really how it's going to turn out? Who knows?
Osha to lure May in peacefully as bait. So they all go on a hike, and a tracker is brought in with them, who's given the scent of May to find her. First off, why not just go straight to Kelnaka's house? But let's just say they have no intel.
They explain that they don't know where it is. They don't know where the house is. He went into they say in the episode, he went into the woods. Well, first off, they go to the planet, and they ask the natives there, and they tell them, hey, that Jedi, the Wookiee, went into the woods there. We don't know where he is. It's hard to go there. And they bought a tracker just in case, because they prepared for the eventuality they may have to look for him. And, yeah, they have no intel
on where his house exactly is, so okay, whatever. Remember on the ice planet when Soul found Osha quite easily without any tracker whatsoever? Just keep that in mind for a sec. It's weird that a gopher is needed to track a Jedi on the very planet that they're on when they traveled across an entire galaxy to some random hidden planet to infiltrate these witches 7 or so years after they created Force-sensitive girls, 2 of them. They pinpointed them pretty much from light years away. Without this groundhog otter thing, was there a gopher tracker in the High Republic that the Jedi stopped using during the prequel trilogy that I'm not aware of? They had no issue finding the girls then.
Okay, so a few things there. One, we don't know how long they were looking for the witches. They could have been spent years looking for them. We just didn't know until the moment we saw them interact with the witches. So that's one thing to consider. 2, OSHA crashed a prison vessel into an ice planet and didn't exactly wander too far from said vessel. All they need to know is, where did the plane crash? Let's do a circumference. Let's look around. Oh, hey, tracks in the snow. Let's go that way. Or, hey, she's in the area. I can sense her. I'm with her in the Force. Let's go there. A Jedi trying not to be found in the woods, however, a little harder to figure out, especially if it's anywhere on the planet. They were within maybe a few kilometers of each other when they landed. If they went to the crash site, she couldn't have gotten that far. It's an ice planet, a desert planet. They have no idea where this Wookiee went. You know, they know generally where in the planet he might be, but not down to a kilometer, not down to a few kilometers. It's a little tricky because he's saying, "Oh, hey, how'd they figure this out?" Well, here you go. Here's the episode how they explain it. It just feels like he didn't pay attention if he's asking, like, "Hey, why do they have to go and look for them?" Well, they ask questions. It's in the episode. Or maybe he's recording this after the fact and didn't rewatch it before, giving this response. Who knows? Maybe that's it.
But on the same planet, they need a hound. Makes sense. And forget that. The Smiler Ren character is immensely more powerful than all of them. So shouldn't they sense him too? Unless he has also the ability to suppress and hide his Force powers, which is insanely difficult and requires a lot of mastery of the Force to do, something that Palpatine was proficient in. The episode is about 22nd.
Yeah, but he's also able to send all of the other Jedi flying with a flick of his hand. I think we can assume he's strong with the Force.
Intervals with about 5 minutes of pointless exposition, stopping every few moments just to speak some dribble that really doesn't help the story at all, but rather just passes time so that we can get to that amazing cliffhanger. May awakens a space-flying armadillo moth, so Sol cuts it down in half, and they continue on. I'm guessing in the 5th or 6th episode, they're probably going to have to kill a whole bunch of them at night, and it's going to be a bunch of glow sticks in the dark sort of thing. May gets tired and takes a break, then realizes that she doesn't want to kill the Jedi anymore, and her allegiance lies with her sister. Fair enough, she just trained about 17 years to kill the Jedi and seek revenge on them and avenge her sister, but yeah, you know what? She's just kind of tired now, so she's going to take a stop and, switch plans.
Why are people so... Okay, here's what I don't understand with all these responses with this. She only trained that way to avenge her sister. If she's not avenging anyone, why would she bother doing it? I feel like they don't understand it. I mean, it's weird, right? Like, it's weird that they're saying, hey, why would you give up all that training after you spent years training? Well, because there's no point anymore. She's not avenging anyone anymore. Her sister's alive. She fought to defend her sister. Sister's okay. So, who cares? There's nothing to fight for anymore. Of course, her entire worldview will change. That's the only reason that it matters to her.
Good guy. I'm just going to turn myself in. And it seems like she just stopped just to find a good tree to hang Kimir on, the potions guy. He ends up swinging around, crying for help, and it's really overacted, and I think it's done so on purpose because...
All right, Brightside Dylan, thank you for the super chat. Hello, Anthony. How are you? And what are your thoughts on this crossover ship? Izuku from My Hero Academia and Yang from Ruby. Assuming you've both seen Ruby and My Hero Academia. I have seen both. That's an interesting ship. I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of ship Izuku with Todoroki a lot, but I think that could work. I mean, I think Yang... Again, mind you, I like My Hero more than I like Ruby. I should preface that. That's interesting. I think it's a cool combination. I think they have good dynamic, I guess. But Yang always felt more like energetic. I think she would work better with what's his name, whose skin hardens, who I think is really fun in My Hero. That kid, I think they would work better together. Anyway, So anyway, back to this a little bit. That's a good question, though. I like that. It's a good ship. It's interesting. I mean, I would read a fan fiction about it. It'd be kind of cool. It could be very sweet. I like that. And I like Izuku. I think Midoriya is a really interesting character. I think he's really like sweet and Izuku and Oh yeah. Sue, love Sue. Sue's great. Again, like the problem is they're misconstruing what the Star Wars is about. You know, they're misconstruing the motivation of Osha. She wants revenge to avenge her sister. Sister's alive. No need for revenge. That's simple.
He's actually Smiler Ren. He's the evil guy. He says,
Smiler
what are
Ren
you
is
gonna
interesting
do?
as a joke, though.
She says that she's going to turn herself in to kill Naka. Well, that's pretty quick. Quick turnaround. He says his master will kill her. And he breaks character right there and becomes his true self. I'm pretty sure he's the Sith Lord. And people who argue this is not a Sith Lord, okay, call it a Dark Jedi. Call it an Acolyte. The point is, this dude is running around in a black helmet, clad black, with a red lightsaber. He's killing Jedi. What should we call him? For all intents and purposes, he's a Sith. Dark Jedi. Oh no. Okay, sure. All right, semantics. Whatever. Next time, Darth.
The Sith is a very specific order, though. That's as a Star Wars fan, you should. I mean, here's the thing. I don't really care about canon all that much, but the Sith were a specific order with a specific trajectory. As was established in newer Star Wars, there's multiple factions of Darksiders out there. Like, we do have the Inquisitors, none of whom are Sith, by the way. We do have Kylo Ren, who is not a Sith either. We do have the Witches, none of whom are Sith. So there's multiple factions of dark side users out there who are not Sith, are not connected, or maybe affiliated with the Sith, but they're not the Sith directly. So yeah, the Knights of Ren, none of them are Sith. So semantics maybe, but it's like confusing a Catholic for a Protestant, you know? Yeah, they both have similar iconography, but they're very different in terms of core beliefs, even if they have some similarities. What do you think of Khmer being the dark? Yeah, Khamir's the bad guy. He's obvious. I think it's pretty clear he's the acolyte of the show. He's obviously the bad guy. He was in the right place at the right time. He's the only one who was not in that big group shot who could have been the bad guy. It's him. Undeniably so.
Darth Vader comes running around. Let's call him a confused Jedi as well, shall we? You know what? No, he becomes a Jedi again in the end, so we just call him a transient Jedi. He's in his state, right? He's vibing right now. He's figuring himself out.
What is this?
The Jedi run around aimlessly until the Gopher screams and finds May. As she runs for Kelnaka's hut, only to find him dead, Smiler Ren floats in like Dooku did in the 2D Clone Wars, but not like the real Count Dooku or Palpatine did in any live-action movie.
They fly now! They fly now! They fly now!
It was kind of weird to see, but whatever. The least of our worries. He flicks Osha aside and...
The level of response that flying got online was ridiculous. Like, he's just floating. Who cares? People do that. Magneto takes every occasion he can to float. In any movie he's in, he will always float. Even if he's going to fucking get groceries, he will float over there. So, yeah, bad guy floating, who cares, right? Not a big deal.
Throws all the Jedi back with a simple force push. Seems like a much more powerful Darth Maul. So what did I think of the episode? Okay, it wasn't nearly as bad as the Power of One, the Power of Many garbage in the episode before, which had like so many instances of just what the heck is going on. But it had something that was really ridiculous with changing the date of Ki-Adi-Mundi's existence. You know, adding an extra 40 years to an already pre-established character, which has lore in Legends already done, is pretty insane. And
I wonder how he feels about when Obi-Wan Kenobi's birthplace was changed from Coruscant to Stewjon because George Lucas wanted to make a silly joke at an event. I wonder if he cares about when Qui-Gon Jinn's birth date was changed, because that was also changed as well. I wonder if any of that matters, because the same source that tells you when Mundi was born, they said Obi-Wan was from Coruscant. Or maybe that's the same source, specifically the same book, but it was in one of those like prequel guidebooks that came out at the same time. It's not important when a minor character was born. 2 centuries ago even, who cares? It's not important. It doesn't affect anything of any value. All that matters is he's an old alien with a weird looking head. And he doesn't know, and he's clueless. He's clueless in the past. He's clueless in the earlier past. It doesn't matter. He's still a clueless old man with a big head. That's all that matters, and the only reason he has any relevance in this whole series. That's about it. Can we say that all the different factions of the dark side? Yeah, they're all different dark side factions, but they're all basically dark side users. That's the only commonality they have. their core beliefs, their philosophies. It's only a side stuff. Anyway, yeah, when Qui-Gon became younger, his old Padawans were lost, which is unfortunate.
That's pretty crazy. Just to interject this character that made a statement in episode 1 that the Sith haven't been seen for 1,000 years to help report your own half-baked story. You're just not going to make fans with that. I just don't think that that's really the right way to do this.
Does
make
anyone
your own
care
story
about
in between
this guy?
timelines, sure,
Like,
whatever,
who
man.
cares about the alien?
But don't like
Who gives a
resurrect characters, or in this case, what would we even say? Like make their parents do it sooner so that he would like be born 40 years in advance. I mean that literally would have to be like his grandparents made him. You know. Anyways, you guys understand how weird that is, right? So there's that part of it, which to me is like, okay, fine. You know, we could maybe get over that. They want to make him a little bit, you know, come in sooner, sure. Well, they can get very old. So if you didn't know, the Jedi actually allowed Saurians, which is the species that Ki-Adi-Mundi is, to have lots of kids, and they could also have lots of wives. Their species was a dying race, the Saurians, and so it was their duty to have multiple wives and have many children. I don't think Leslie Headland would like that very much, but anyways, I guess that's why his head was shaped the way it was. The man had a lot of work to do, you know, for the good of his people, of course. So, you know, there's that.
I have to slip in that extra little joke about, again, that's the thing with all this grift. They always want to make sure you don't forget, hey, remember the person you don't like? Don't like them. Don't like them. Do not like that person we're saying nothing to like. And again, the problem is, I don't have any particular opinion about this man. Star Wars theory, I don't know him. Never talked to him in real life, so I don't really care. But, like, it just feels like he's making a mountain out of a molehill.
Bringing him in there. But even with that, it's like, how do you now keep this from the council and not tell anybody? And when Qui-Gon says, you know, hey, there was a Sith Lord, you're going to question him? I mean, I feel like then in this case now, Ki-Adi-Mundi would be the very first person to agree with him and be like, yes, he could be. I saw this person. It just messes everything up. You can't
What's he talking
do
about?
that with characters, especially one as important with that one line that Ki-Adi-Mundi said in episode 1.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
It's really ridiculous. It's so cocky, it's so arrogant, in my opinion, to take a character that George wrote, put him 40 years ahead of his time, and make him now completely, like, it just opens up so many... I'm excited to see what happens at the very end of this whole show, to finally give my full consensus on the entire season and how much it has either destroyed or bolstered Star Wars. And I'm inclined to go with destroyed. But hey, look, that was episode 4.
Ki-Adi-Mundi being born 40 years earlier destroys Star Wars. Okay. And again, what's different? Let's break it down for a second. What about this character is so different now than it was in Phantom Menace? He denied the facts of his eyes and ears, ignored someone who came forward with information about a threat to the Jedi. And in the Acolyte now, he's ignoring the evidence of his eyes and ears and refusing to assess the threat to the Jedi. He's doing the same thing. It's just at different stages of time. He hasn't changed over this course of time. It's just not very important. This is such a nitpick. And again, it's so boring of a point of discussion. But the reason I brought up Star Wars theory was I wanted to talk about this right here. Because again, I want to emphasize this. He's talking about love. He's talking about, you know, being respectful, despite what he said in his stream. But let's see what he says right here. Oh, not add to queue. I want to close the player. So let's play the video. This is the real reason I want to bring up Star Wars theory.
These are the kind of videos I just really don't live for. I just don't like doing these kinds of videos. I think they're so ridiculous. But here we are. You guys remember during the live stream? I'm not going to drag it out. The live stream with the watch party, and you guys were spamming chat like crazy. Like, check Wikipedia. They just changed it. And I did. And I reacted to it. I'm like, holy crap, they're actually changing it in real time with like no reason whatsoever, just because the show says so and like changes everything like that. What was pre-established?
How dare the show, the wiki adapt to the show's canon? The wiki about the show. Okay.
They had what they had written for however many years, and then they just, boom, like that, change it on a show that really makes no sense and has no business putting Ki-Adi in there. So now, I guess because I'm making good arguments, they have a few psychos, a few assholes that are going around sending them death threats. And now their audience and they themselves are purporting that I am the one sending these threats. It is...
All right, so he just said, because I made a convincing argument, psychos send them threats. But now they're blaming me for it. You just get credit for it. Right there, dude. I mean, again, okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Thoughtless statement. Didn't think it through all the way. I've made dumb statements before, too. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say, let's assume that he was just slip of the tongue.
me, my responsibility, my fan base, my people. And I made a statement on X, on Twitter, that is erroneous, that is ridiculous. How many times do I have to make videos where I denounce this kind of behavior? I mean, if we're going to start measuring death threats, I think I take the frickin' prize for that one. I think I take the amount of abuse that these people send me is insane. But that's the price you get when you are on YouTube. It's not favorable. I wish it wouldn't happen. I could go into stories and we can have a channel about abuse that happens online. And I'm not the only one. It's everybody online. So look, I have denounced this kind of behavior so many times. But to go ahead and say that because there are a few psychos who disagree with a decision that you made, Wikipedia, and then to throw that, your decision to do something with your business, your channel, your website, and the angry fans that came from that decision, and to say that a few of those psychos and bad apples are because of me is really, really wrong. I have all...
Let's look at what the actual statement is. Let's read the tweet. He has it on screen. Let's take a look. So he's saying that Wikipedia is blaming him for the threats. So, okay, so right now his response politely, so it starts with Star Wars Theory statement. These aren't my people, don't attach that to me or there will be serious consequences for you. These people are on their own, nothing to do with me, please find where, blah, 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 blah. So he's saying, don't blame me, or I'm going to get back at you for blaming me. And I'm not saying, listen, that's not really the best way of starting off the conversation. So Pete Fletzer, it's time this theory uses his platform, his reach, and his influence to denounce the threats and attacks. With the largest voice in the Star Wars community, simply casually covering his own ass with, remember, be respectful, doesn't cut it. Silence is endorsement. Yeah, you gotta say something stronger. You have a huge platform saying, hey, be cool, guys. It's not enough. And yeah, he's saying, I've denounced it before. Okay, well, denounce it now because it's happening now. It's that simple. This isn't a big deal. Listen, this is where you go, hey, you know what? Crud, someone was ridiculous on my side. Let me take a step back. Let me stand up and make a stand in this situation. I gotta say something. This is wrong. If I was ever inspiring action that was bad, that would be my first instinct. So Wikipedia then responds, it's telling we didn't get any threats until immediately after he told his followers to fix Wikipedia. The ones that came to vandalize the site from that are the ones that we got threats from. So again, time, corresponding information, and this. So here we have a bunch of people getting death threats, a bunch of people getting attacks, the site being messed up. In a situation like this, you guys take a step back and go, okay, they're saying I'm accountable for this. You have two options. One, take accountability. Even though you didn't do a single thing, he did not vandalize the site directly. He did not do anything personally, as far as I know. Say, okay, hey, listen, I didn't do it personally. Don't do this. This is wrong. You should respect the staff who are working hard, because Wikipedia, it's all volunteer. None of them are not like, I don't think there's anyone paid on the site. It's all fans and people who are very enthusiastic about the lore, just like myself. So I should really respect their time, say, hey, listen, they're trying to do this. I denounce any bad behavior, and if I know anyone who's done it, I will personally see to it that you'll be banned from chat or some penalty that's affected his community or not to make someone incentivized not to do it. Like say, hey, I'll ban you from Discord if I catch you doing this. That's a fair punishment, I think, if you want to do that. It doesn't have to even be punishment. Just to revoke it with verbal, that should be enough for some of the people who follow him. Let's see what he does instead.
Always told people to be extremely polite and extremely respectful, and I've never told anyone to send death threats to anybody because I get it the most. I really do. I have the largest Star Wars channel in the world, and with that comes the most passionate fandom. With that comes a lot of anger, entitlement, jealousy perhaps, whatever. And with that comes a lot of, you filter it down, just crazy people. I've gotten every single death threat in the book. I've had people...
Listen, I've gotten death threats before online. I'm just some nobody who wrote articles for a few years and does a YouTube channel. So yeah, death threats are common. But what are you going to do about the Wikipedia situation? Talking about yourself a lot. What's going to happen with Wikipedia? Keep it on track, man. Keep it on track. Let's see what you do. I'm sure you'll pull through.
People call my parents. I've had it. People send our threats to women I've dated. The list goes on. And not to make it about me, but I'm trying to tell you that I know firsthand how. I remember the first time I got them, I was like, what? This exists? But now it's just like, oh yeah, cool. Get in line. I remember reading a Forbes article about Wikipedia. They do if I'm not mistaken. It's online somewhere. You can find it. Back in 2015 or whatever it was, they do 120 million, it's online, 120 million page visits a month, which is insane as websites pay like 10x YouTube. 120 million, and that was 2015. I mean, maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, but it was something ridiculous. Enough for Forbes to make an article about it, an entire article for them. So of those 120 million people, you're going to tell me that people that are pissed are all from my fan base? No, dude, you got like, what is that? 50 times, literally 50 times my entire subscriber base you get in views per month. Please do.
But we're not talking about views per month. We're talking about views that immediately followed your stream. You know, we're talking about people who are immediately after the stream. It's not per month. What are you talking about?
Not make these claims. I run, at this point, a very serious company who handles a lot of different jobs and tasks, and I do not appreciate the slander that you are throwing towards my company. If you continue to lie and purport that my company is sending you death threats or reporting my followers to send you...
But they didn't say you sent them death threats. They said your response encouraged others to act that way. In the court of law, that would not hold up. You know, it's not slander to say your influence inspired people to vandalize the site, especially if, because again, you don't know what's on those threats. If they put in their signature that, like, after watching Star Wars Theory's stream, I was pissed off. That's all it takes. One person saying that, your case is cooked. It'll be a slap lawsuit.
You death threats will take legal action against you. Do not like that defamation. You are quite a big presence. You're not a little shrimp fry on Twitter with a couple followers. If you continue, I will file a lawsuit against you. I'm telling you right now. That being said, no, I do not condone death threats. I've never sent fans against anybody to send death threats. People have free will. Just like they're sent towards me. They can be sent towards anybody. People are assholes. There's asshole people everywhere. I can't control that. All I can do is say, be respectful. What do you think that means? Be respectful, but hey, send death threats. I'd appreciate it if you and anyone else trying to defame the company would stop. You persist, we can take it from there. You know, you did something that people didn't like. I know firsthand when you do stuff like that, people will have a reaction. It's on the internet. So that's it. That's all I got to say about it. So I didn't want to make a statement. Don't have to upload a video about it. But, you know, it's now to the point where you're slandering my company, and I want to... This is the first step. I take these things very seriously, especially with a brand of your size. So, hey, all the best. Guys, don't send anybody death threats. If you want to argue something, do so respectfully, as I've said millions of times, and that is also documented as well for the public and potentially the courts. So, have a great day. May the force be with you. Love.
Listen, guys, be respectful, but if you threaten me, I'm going to send, like, lawsuits to your house. It's like, come on, man. Come on. What are you doing there? Like, come on. Let's take a step back here. All right. This next one coming up here. I'll do something else in a bit. But, so like right here, it's pretty clear that I do want to do one thing with this guy, like a critical drinker. I think he has I want to go back before any of this. I want to go back before The Acolyte even came out to find some content of a response. I know he made a video about it before. So it's like, here's the thing. You take a step back and you go, you had an opportunity to say, hey, listen, let's even out any bad blood. No harassment. I would be so upset if my fan base did this. You have the platform to do that. And instead you throw a frivolous lawsuit threat against someone. Like, that's just escalating matters. Because you're going to hype up the angry fans to make them want to defend you more against this awful organization, as you know, or you could de-escalate the situation so easily. Just de-escalate. There's no reason to escalate it like that. Even if you say to your fan base, hey, be cool, that's not going to do anything for the really intense fans. The ones who are cool aren't going to do anything. They're not going to threaten anyone because they're already chill. But the people who are hyperactive, not hyperactive, that's the wrong word, who are angry, aggressive, they're not going to listen to you saying be cool. They're just going to do it anyway. Anyway. Let's take a look at some of these. I want to see where the discussion started with The Acolyte. Because we're talking about the more recent stuff. That's all fine and good. I think 2 videos from the drinker will do that. Let's take a look. Yeah. Man, mixed signals from the whole, from this whole discussion. Because it's like, you're going off on this tangent of saying, like, oh, it's so bad. Star Wars is, how dare Wikipedia bend to Disney's pressure. Don't harass anyone, though. Star Wars, they're doing all this stuff. I can't believe I'm going to sue you if you say this. Hey, guys, be respectful. It's all good, guys, all right? The problem is this creates a dichotomy, right? Creates a false narrative. You're either with them or you're against them. That's how it is. But be cool. Don't be mean. Yeah, and again, he'd have to really prove... And none of the language that Wikipedia used was specifically saying, we blame Star Wars theory. They were saying Star Wars theory said a thing, and people reacted, and that his public influence resulted in people vandalizing the site. That's not saying he directly sent people. It's saying the influence spurred people on. That's a very different statement than what he's acting like they're saying. But again, let's keep going.
Another day, another chance to witness the horrific spectacle of Disney prodding and kicking the bloated corpse of Star Wars in the desperate hope that it'll let out a burst of flatulent gas which they can pretend is a sign of life.
So again, let's take a step back here for a second. With this introduction, we see that he's already gearing his audience to getting angry about Star Wars. They've been geared up. They're hyped. They're chomping at the chain. They're ready. So let's see what they say.
Case, our latest desperate prod of the corpse is The Acolyte, possibly the most unanticipated and unwanted Lucasfilm project since Willow. A spin-off from the disastrous High Republic books that nobody read, starring a bunch of
High Republic fans. Is coming for you now. I know there's some High Republic fans in the comments. Put a filter on the drinker. Is there a way to filter him? I don't know.
Characters nobody cares about, played by actors that nobody's heard of, and helmed by a woman that nobody seems to like.
You never saw Logan? Daphne Keane? Daphne Keane, never heard of her? You never saw The Matrix, buddy? Actors nobody like. I mean, again, I don't believe you've ever watched The Hate You Give, but
Really, what can I say about The Acolyte that would make you want to watch it?
This is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars. By a considerable margin.
Anyway, now that I've seen the first 2 episodes, I'm at least in some position to assess the show's merits. And believe me, this shouldn't take long. The first episode opens with strong female antagonist challenging strong female Jedi to a fight in a bar.
Attack me with all your strength.
And I must admit, it was nice to see Carrie-Anne Moss back in action and, never mind. You know, it's interesting that characters can survive lightsaber injuries like this, but a small throwing knife to the chest is enough to take them down and end their lives.
Yeah, because one was to the side and one was to the heart. I mean, organs have an impact.
Shows how much I know about human anatomy, I guess.
Yeah,
Flash
it
over
does,
to the other side of...
Considering that one was hit in the side with a weapon that cauterized your body immediately, and one's a knife in the heart. Kind of need a heart to function. I don't know. Side injury, it's going to cause internal bleeding and be awful, but you can live through that. People have survived being struck through with objects. Anyway, and honestly, it's not even that particularly gay. Like, people act like, oh, it's so homoerotic and so gay. Like, you have a coven of witches. Witches are usually a little queer. And that's about it. That's all you're getting.
Of the galaxy, and we're introduced to strong female character number 1. Strong female character number 1 is a plucky young woman with a knack for technology who's also strong with the Force. Where have I seen this before?
But she's not strong with the Force. She's demonstrably weak with the Force. That's, like, a thing. It's established in the episode she's not strong with the Force.
Anyway, she works as a mechanic, mechanic.
Are you serious?
On the outer hulls of space freighters, doing the usual stuff like repairing power couplings and putting out fires? Sure, yeah, okay. I guess fire in The Acolyte doesn't need oxygen like in other shows because it no longer has the patriarchy holding it back. You go, girl fire. Things are going great for her.
I mean, let's be fair. Do you ever watch Star Wars for the scientific accuracy? No, because it's all ridiculous.
Until she gets arrested by dumb male character and strong female character number 2 for the murder of strong female Jedi. See, it turns out that strong female character number 1 and strong female antagonist are actually twin sisters, and so naturally people mix them up after the murder of strong female Jedi. And what is all of this based on, you might ask? Why, the eyewitness testimony of the bartender where strong female Jedi got killed. Not DNA samples, which actually would have made more sense since they're twins, not hologram recordings or security footage, just a guy who saw a young woman kill strong female Jedi.
What DNA samples would you take from the bar? She's not hit ever. What you gonna do? Drop some hair? Well, guess what? There's a lot of hair in the bar. It's a lot of people there. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Figure out, oh, this hair strand must be the right one, or I can tell this hair strand was placed at this time of day. It's like, you're not going to get any information from that. If you go to a highly public area and looking for DNA samples, you're not going to find the right DNA sample because there's too many separate DNA samples to choose from. DNA works if it's, only a set number of people were in a location. You can isolate those examples and you can hone in on the DNA sample that's relevant. Otherwise, big public area, not relevant. You only have witness.
Now, you probably don't need me to tell you that eyewitness testimonies can be notoriously inaccurate, especially in highly stressful situations where our brains release all kinds of chemicals and stimulants to try to keep us alive. Chemicals which often cloud our judgment and blur our memory, making us not particularly reliable when it comes to accurate recollection of people and events. I mean, given that he's an alien, I'd have to assume as well that his description of the suspect would probably have boiled down to a young black human female with her hair in braids. Now, in a galaxy composed of thousands of colonized planets, there'd have to be literally billions of people who fit that description, yet apparently this was enough to bring them straight to strong female character number 1. Like, how? Also, you might assume that being on the other side of the galaxy at the time of the murder, with multiple witnesses to prove you were there and no means of travelling to and from the site of the killing, would be a pretty strong alibi, but not according to dumb male character at least. Oh yeah, and in case you were wondering what his role in the story is, it's to be consistently wrong about everything to make the various strong female characters look better by comparison. Anyway.
Okay, so in fairness, I will cite when they're correct. I do think it is a little wonky that, if all you're going off of is black young women, you can narrow it down to certain Force users, sure, to an extent. And I'm sure there weren't that many Jedi who fit the description in that precise age group who could use the Force. They probably went for ex-Jedi first. It is still a little hokey. You have to do a little suspension of disbelief, but again, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say that's a terrible critique. That element of it, saying that, oh, hey, of all the people in the galaxy, you honed in on this person. You narrowed it down based on Force users, sure. But again, what are you going to do? It's a little silly, but it's the caveat to get the ball rolling in the show. It's easy to suspend your disbelief there. Yeah, so there you go.
Wait, they decided...
Also, they couldn't account for her location. She didn't give them an alibi as to where she was that night. So, at that point, and what I do like about The Acolyte is that they keep this kind of mistaken identity thing a little bit, but then at the end of the episode they reveal, okay, we know it's not you, so figured it out. And yeah, the other problem is they have the same DNA, sure, because they're twins, but there's no DNA sample that we've gotten aside from hair. That's about it.
To ship strong female character number 1 back to Coruscant to answer for her crimes. Now, you might think it would make sense to just take her back on their own ship, because why wouldn't you do that, right? You're there with her already, and there's 2 of you, so you could keep an eye on her and make sure that she doesn't try to escape. Because if she really is responsible for killing a Jedi, despite all the evidence pointing against it, then clearly she's smart, resourceful, and powerful. You don't want to take any chances with this one, lads. Or you could put her on a regular old prison transport with minimal security and just assume that everything's gonna work out fine. And wouldn't you know it, within about 2 minutes, the other convicts stage a prison break, overpower the one and only guard droid on board, and leave her alone to crash land on the planet. Which she survives because an uncontrolled crash from orbital velocity is definitely the sort of thing you can walk away.
I'm seeing people in the comments go, yeah, actually, what he just said really is an argument that we should have more diversity in Star Wars. Because if there were so many people who look like her in the Star Wars universe, there should be more of them. So, by that logic, any case where he criticizes diversity in Star Wars is probably inaccurate because Star Wars... Let me actually move my screen a little bit over. It's a little too far over. Because if he's saying, like, hey, Star Wars, there's like 1,000 people who look like you in the galaxy, Osha, yeah, that means there'd be more black people in Star Wars, right? So he's arguing for diversity.
Way from. Anyway, back on Coruscant, we're introduced to Squid Game Guy, who receives word from strong female character number 3 that strong female character number 1's ship has crashed. They know this because they picked up the escaped prisoners from the escape pod, but they haven't gotten around to investigating the crash site yet, and are thinking about sending out probe droids to take a quick look. Okay, back up a second because I really want to go over this one. If you recovered these prisoners from the escape pod and brought them all the way back to Coruscant, that must mean that you already had at least one Republic ship in orbit around the planet to recover the escape pod in the first place. So you're telling me that... Instead of investigating the crash site for survivors, which would have been on the planet directly below, you instead brought the prisoners all the way back to Republic headquarters and then asked for instructions? So, like, are you retarded or what? Also, if strong female character number 3 looks familiar to you, you might recognize her as showrunner Leslie Headland's wife. I'm sure that had absolutely nothing to do.
Okay, the nepo casting aside, not nepo casting. That's not nepotism. That's like just casting your friends in a product. Okay, so let's take a step back here. We have no idea where they intercepted that pod. We just don't. It could have been like right next to the planet. It could have been further away. It could be another system. We don't know. So that right there is your big first problem with your logic. Also, I'm not even going to address. If I addressed every vulgarity this guy says, we'll be here all night. So I'm not even going to bother. But we all know, you know. So let's take a step back from that. The fact of the matter is that by the logic of your video, this investigation they may not have even gotten to the crash site yet. They intercepted the probe. Almost all prisoners were accounted for. That's probably their first step. They took a look at they figured out who was sent on the ship last. And they figured, we're missing one prisoner. They got everyone else. We'll check the crash site for survivors, but they probably didn't live. So, yeah. It's like, it just feels kind of lazy so far.
Do with her casting in this show, just like James Gunn doesn't let family connections influence his casting choices either. Anyway, Squid Game guy decides that he wants to take a look at the site for himself, because strong female character number 1 was his Padawan once upon a time. So he rounds up dumb male character and strong female character number 2 and heads off to the—
This just feels like a lazy summary of the first episode. How much more of this is there? 3 minutes. Okay.
Crash site to investigate, and almost immediately runs into her after ripping off a scene from The Fugitive. Then he explains that strong female antagonist is definitely dead because he saw her die in a fire when she was a kid, so strong female character number 1 is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. But then strong female character number 1 is like, I didn't do it, trust me bro. And he's like, well, I'm convinced. Fuck me, you're easy to win over, aren't you? It's good to see that—
Well, I mean, he's strong with the Force, he probably sensed the truth in her. Or there's something he's not telling us, which is probably what happens. Okay, so Soul... Okay, I got theories about Soul. I think there's potential for him to be a really good surprise antagonist of this show. They're building him up to be this kind of, like, mentor figure. He's so good and sweet and kind, and you can tell something from his past disturbs him. He's clearly accountable for something awful. Like, we know we're building up to something here. But again... The problem is this description is just a summary of the plot. It's not really criticizing anything except for, like, saying, wanted to get DNA samples. Well, because it's a bar, a public area. There's lots of DNA samples. Take your pick. It's not going to help you. There's probably dozens of people who walked around that landing where the fight happened. So he hasn't really said anything yet. He's just saying, oh, here's the plot summary. It's cool, I guess. Strong women. Oh, that's about it. He's not really making any meaningful statements. He's just saying a lot of buzzwords to rally his base up. This is kind of a pointless review. Let's power through it. This part right here has a lot of viewers in it, so I think it might be a significant argument. Let's skip ahead a little bit.
One quick conversation's enough to change his mind, I guess. Meanwhile, strong female antagonist goes for a walk on a beach and meets up with Discount Venom, who delivers what may be one of the most nonsensical monologues in the entire show.
Steel or laser are no threat to them.
She literally did kill a Jedi with a fucking blade less than 30 minutes ago. Like, do these people even read their own scripts? Do they even think about what they're writing? Then he ignites a red lightsaber for no other reason than because they want you to know that he's a Sith, and that's it. That's episode 1 over.
So let's take a step back. That's a weird thing to... He's obviously talking in like a poetic little ramble. So him saying steel age doesn't hurt them. He's talking about like the general message that he's trying to relay. Yeah, you can kill a Jedi with a knife, but he's talking about the collective. Also, Venom is I got Smilo Ren. That was at least a clever... I'll give them credit for that. That's a clever insult. Discount Venom, they don't look a thing like Venom. He's an allegorical figure. Again, I don't think there's anything of value for the rest of this review. Let me just finish it up and move on.
What a completely retarded mess this show is.
Again, you gotta... whatever.
It's built around literally the simplest by-the-numbers murder mystery plot, complete with twin sister femme fatale tropes and everything, and somehow still finds a way to fuck it up. And it's all held together by insane coincidences, ridiculous contrivances, and decisions that run contrary to logic and common sense.
So, here's the thing about Star Wars. Here's the thing with The Acolyte. It's not a murder mystery. It's a conspiracy mystery. This is more like, online I compared it to, I think I compared it on some Twitter thread to, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, not in terms of quality, because Ghost in the Shell's leagues better than The Acolyte. No comparison in terms of quality. Ghost in the Shell's fantastic. Even if we had watched Standalone Complex, watch it. But in terms of the mystery, you figure out very quickly that the Laughing Man's identity in Standalone Complex doesn't really matter. What matters is more why the Laughing Man does what he does. In this case, the mystery of The Acolyte isn't so much who's doing the killing, that's secondary. The mystery is why they're doing the killing. We know who's doing the killing from the beginning in The Acolyte. It's Osha. Oh, no, it's May. I'm sorry. It's May? I get names mixed up. So, by the logic of simply saying, hey, we know who's doing it, the question is why? What's the motivation? What are these plot points that we just aren't seeing? Why were the witches killed? Again, like it's a whole mystery. It's being composed slowly. And the mystery isn't the identity, it is the reasoning. The show's not done yet. I mean, it has a lot of dead bodies, sure, but a lot of those conspiracy mysteries also have a lot of bodies. The problem is a murder mystery is about solving who is doing the killings. This is not that. This is more of a conspiratorial mystery. It's a little different. It's a little different structure.
Andor showed us how a murder investigation can be conducted in a smart, gripping, tension-building way, with a combination of deductive logic, interesting character moments, and explosive bursts of gritty action. You get
That's
the feel.
Not really a murder mystery, though. That's a political thriller. It's a political drama, really. They're not really murder mysteries.
And they were trying real hard to emulate that tone and feel in this show. The only things they're missing are brains, creativity, imagination, and writing skill. And that's not the only problems at play here either. The acting is terrible, the fight choreography is weak, nobody looks like they actually want to be here, and the pacing is god-awful. The episode could probably have been wrapped up in under 20 minutes without all the pointless time-wasting travel backwards and forwards, and redundant conversations telling us stuff we just saw happen. We're only one episode in so far, and I can already see how they're having to stretch the paper-thin plot to try to spin it out into 8 episodes. This show might aspire to be something like Andor, but it's more like Book of Boba Fett, and believe me, it only gets worse with episode 2, but I'm gonna have to cover that in a separate video because I don't think my mind or my liver can handle.
I mean, I think what he wants to do is make another video that gets higher in the algorithm, but anyway, I digress. So the reason I wanted to bring this up at all was because I wanted to skip ahead to this. Right. So here's one that came out. Oh, so okay, the Shogun is pretty good. I'll give him that. Shogun's a pretty good show. See if there are any videos between these points. So, between all that, he's made one video right here, a 7-minute video. Yeah, and I think the fight choreography in The Acolyte's pretty cool, I think. So, about 3 months ago, so we're talking, what's it, April? He made a video about The Acolyte. And this is where I think a lot of the people who say, this was never about, this is always when the show started, the show was just bad, yeah. People were gearing up to hate the show before. 1.8 million views on this video right here. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, it does sound a little bit like Star Wars Columbo, doesn't it? A little bit. I think, again, more like a conspiracy theory-ish. But Columbo, I think, is a great subversion of the typical murder mystery. I think Columbo is fantastic. I think a ton of movies could learn a lot from watching Columbo episodes. A lot of mystery writers. If you want to write mystery, watch Columbo. I think it's a great, more than like the Hercule Poirot mysteries that Hercule Poirot also with Agatha Christie is fantastic too, but, again, I digress.
Remember Star Wars?
Yes.
Oh, shut up, you. Remember how it used to be this awesome space adventure with cool heroes, evil villains, epic action scenes, and inspirational messages about the importance of determination, loyalty, sacrifice, and redemption? Remember when people used to get excited at the prospect of new movies and TV shows that
So, I think a while ago, I made that video about bad faith criticism, and they always want to talk about the past. Remember how good Look, there's fire in space right there! Look, it's right there! Remember how good Star Wars was when fire was in space? Yeah, there you go. There's your fire in space. It's right there, buddy. Right there. There's your fire in space. You're not upset by that, though, are you? Because it's old. And the old is always better. Again, a point I want to make right now is that these fans will always argue that the past is the best version of what it is. That it was better in the past, now not so much. Let's find out. I do miss space battles too. Let's just make a good space fight in one of these Star Wars shows. Star Wars has not had a lot of good space fights, not since I think it was Ahsoka, or was it I think Mando season 3 had a decent space fight, if I remember correctly.
Rich and detailed world we all wanted to know more about. Remember when it was still considered an icon of pop culture and not a sad, embarrassing train wreck being mercilessly milked to death by a gigantic, money-hungry corporation that never understood what made it special in the first place? Remember when it was still being worked on by creatives with genuine passion for the world they were adding to, instead of ridiculous, incompetent tourists and activists masquerading as filmmakers? Well, that brings me neatly along to The Acolyte, the latest excretion from Disney Lucasfilm, preparing to join the long line of failed projects that we're all going to save Star Wars. This time coming from the creative mind of Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslie Headland, who really cares about Star Wars, apparently.
So here's one thing I found very strange. They always keep bringing up that she worked for Harvey Weinstein, but, like, so did half of Hollywood. Like, you want to talk about her working for Harvey, but not, say, Wes Craven, Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Hayao Miyazaki, Neil Gaiman, technically, with some of his projects, Kevin Williamson. The list goes on and on and on. Tons of people worked for Weinstein. So again, anyway.
Star Wars saved my life.
I don't believe you.
Anyway, in much the same way that Marvel desperately held back the trailer for the Marvels as long as possible because they fully understood what an embarrassing turd they had on their hands, not to mention the sheer fan apathy towards the project, the first trailer for The Acolyte finally released yesterday, 4 years after the show was first announced and barely 2 months before it premieres on Disney+. And Jesus, it's already been ratioed into oblivion. Honestly, the memes probably got more...
So right there we have proof that... Now, first off, a lot of those like-dislike bars, they're inaccurate. They don't really reflect the actual like-to-dislike ratio on these things. But let's talk about that for a second. Right there we have proof that we're already ratioing all new Star Wars stuff. The moment it comes out, the ratio starts. So you can't say it's organic responses to the content itself. The ratio, even 3 months before, was already taking place. There were already fans who were massively downvoting everything Acolyte related.
More traction on social media than the show itself. But Drinker, you handsome roguish smuggler with a heart of gold, I hear you say. What's of the trailer itself?
Gross.
What does it tell us about the show? What's the tone and...
Oh, that's right, subtitles.
Feel? What can we expect from the creative powerhouse of Leslie Headland? Well, I'll be fucked if I know, because the trailer is less of a primer for The Acolyte and more like a series of disconnected scenes carefully chosen to tell us nothing at all. I mean, I definitely had fun playing a particularly challenging game of Spot the White Guy with this trailer, because damn man, this one shows enough to fulfill Disney's entire DEI quota for the next 2 fiscal years. For example, check out this collection of Jedi Padawans and see if you can identify the one demographic that's mysteriously left out.
Okay, this is what I wanted to really focus on. This one image got a lot of traction online, both from people who don't like The Acolyte and people who do like The Acolyte. So everyone got traction out of this. As he mentions in his first episode review, there's going to be a lot of black people in Star Wars' universe. There's going to be a lot of aliens. A lot of white guys too, but we already know they exist. So, who cares? And they are white men in the show. But there's just as many white men in the show as there were black men in the previous Star Wars film. So I guess it's a little inverted there. So again, it's like, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, sure. There's going to be a lot of black Jedi. Just based on pure metrics alone. So this particular story affected some of them. Who cares? Looking at this right here too, he obsessed over a bunch of girls. And if they were boys, it's black boy, right there. That's the only distinguishing quality they have, or alien. It's very clear he's saying that white people are being replaced from Star Wars when we've had like how many. I mean, again, I'm not trying to act like diversity for diversity's sake is some great thing. I made a video criticizing. Not the concept forced a capital, the idea that corporations try to pander to certain demographics with soulless kind of replications. So I'm not arguing that it's necessarily always wrong to say, hey, this is kind of tokenism. But this is very tokenizing, this one shot. And if your core argument is it does not have white people in one shot of Star Wars, and that's going to be the core thing your argument like depends on, we have problems. It's not going to work out. Your argument is already based on a very faulty line of logic.
Anyway, as best as I could piece together from various interviews and whatever tidbits of information the trailer gave us, the general gist is that the show takes place in a time of peace and prosperity for the High Republic, with the Jedi presiding over a galaxy of order and happiness, because Leslie Headland thought it would be interesting to make Star Wars with no war in it. Superb choice there.
I mean, that's what the Phantom Menace did. It's a time of peace, and then the Trade Federation messes things up. And they're peacekeepers, but there's no war going on. So it's a blockade, and there's one battle at the end. It's not a war, it's a military conflict. So right there, that's interesting right there. You're already kind of arguing that Star Wars, where there is no war. And it would be interesting to see how the galaxy functions without like an active war zone going on. And there's tons of eras in Star Wars where there is no war. Again, the Acolyte isn't, not the Acolyte. Andor is an example of that. The war ended. The good guys lost, but it's still, there's no active war going on. It's pre-rebellion, essentially. Or the beginning of the rebellion, I should say. But, yeah, so let's keep going.
Leslie, can't wait for you to make an Alien movie that doesn't have any xenomorphs in it. Although I did like how she described the show as Frozen meets Kill Bill.
Fuck.
Which honestly feels like she picked the last two movies she happened to see and mashed them together.
The 13 of us began with a singular vision. Titanic meets Frasier.
I mean, honestly, what are you even supposed to take from a description like that? Apparently, she also wanted to explore the franchise from the perspective of the villains, because the bad guys are wildly outnumbered at that point and are the underdogs, which kind of explains this line right here.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power.
Ah, Star Wars, the classic story of good versus evil, which is no longer about good versus evil.
This is about power.
Power.
Tell me, why is so much of modern Hollywood about tearing down classic heroes and...
So here's the thing. This whole description is like taking words that she said, maybe, and saying, oh, because it's no longer good versus evil, that's bad. I'm like, okay, so what? It's like, the problem is it's not saying anything. Saying a show is about blurring the lines between good and evil, featuring the bad guys as the underdogs. That's not inherently a bad statement to make. It's actually very interesting. That's one of the reasons why the Acolyte thing has some potential. If it really illustrates the vulnerability of those who turn to the dark side, looks at maybe how they interpret the Force differently. You know? Because we've seen the Force exist as this greater universal presence. Yeah, they're going to have to... Also, the idea that Frozen meets Kill Bill is... It's just a simple... As Comment's pointing out, story about sisterly relationship and a revenge story. It's straightforward. And most Hollywood pitches deal with... That's how a lot of these pitches start. You say, oh, it's like this meets this. To simplify a concept to terms an executive would understand. Because executives won't listen to you if you say, oh, it's about these two sisters and one's over here, one's over there. They want you to boil it down to the simple components of what thing that made money is this like? What two things that made money is this like? Because executives don't think creatively. They think, oh, money, that's it. The problem is this isn't really meaningful criticism. It's just saying, hey, it's like these two things. That's bad because of the woke agenda. It's like, that's not really saying anything.
And reframing villains as misunderstood anti-heroes. Why are they trying to dupe people
into... Wait, is he implying that Wicked is new? Wicked's been around for like 20 years, dude. Where have you been?
Believing that nothing is intrinsically good or bad, that morality and objective reality don't actually exist, and everything comes down to what you personally feel. It's almost like...
What does that have to do with the Marvels or Ant-Man and the Wasp, which were very clearly black and white stories and the worse for it?
Once you stop people from believing in anything, then they'll eventually come to accept everything. Anyway, I digress. I have to admit, I did find myself with a few questions as I watched this trailer though. Like, why is Carrie-Anne Moss fighting like she's got a metal rod shoved up her arse? Why is this diverse individual cosplaying as the 13th Doctor? Why is this guy fighting hand to hand when lightsabers exist? How exactly did Leslie...
Because he's not trying to kill her. That's why.
Caitlin gets such a high-profile showrunner job in a franchise that she's never even worked in before.
Like, you just have to have the confidence to walk in there and pretend like you know how to do it. I'm telling you guys, like, the truth. Like, that's how I made my first film, was that I was like, I know what's going on. I didn't at all. And I think it shows in the movie.
That explains it.
That's a reasonable statement. The phrase "fake it till you make it" is a great way of getting your start in somewhere. But saying that's how you got your start in there is not saying this is how I'm doing it currently. Myeon, thank you for the super chat. Luke is correct in pointing out the Jedi's role in an otherwise wise, corrupt republic. But media literacy is boring. Straightforward good versus evil. Yay! Yeah, exactly. Like, the thing about The Last Jedi is that one thing about The Last Jedi I really like is when Luke just says, hey, listen, the Jedi were pompous, they thought they knew everything, but really they were arrogant to think they could control this universal force that exists throughout everything. That the force was small enough to be this. That's the thing. It's very clear that they are boiling down the Force to something that is controllable. And that's interesting. That the Jedi were arrogant, and because of their arrogance made some mistakes. And yeah, evil and good, it's a choice. And we see that throughout the whole series. That's why redemption's such a big thing. People can choose to be good. And the problem here is that the whole criticism boils down to this particular storyteller, who I am villainizing because it's easy to point all the problems at one person, wanted to tell a different story in an established sandbox. That's what they're angry about. And they've clearly been angry about it, because it's not a new thing. It's not when the fire in space started. It's not when the Force lesbian witches showed up. It's not because Kiandi Mundi is like a little older. It's because the moment that it all started, it was a different perspective on an established IP, which you need to breathe life into something. You can't keep telling the same stories over and over again. It just breeds stagnation. If you don't believe me, look at The Crow. Same. I love that first Crow movie. I love the Crow comic, but the stagnation of that franchise is ultimately what destroyed it before it could even really get started. That and the fact that it seems sacrilegious to keep doing with that franchise. Yeah, Star Wars is a Western in space, but like Westerns encompass a lot of territory, encompass a lot of ground. So, anyway.
If you want another fun little game for yourself, then look up pretty much any interview of Headland talking about this show, and I can pretty much guarantee that 90% of it will be her talking about her favourite subject in the entire world, herself. How important this story was to her, how it made her feel to be represented, why her characters from a fanfic written decades ago somehow find themselves in a $100 million TV show because they mattered to her.
Is that when I pitched it, because I came in and I pitched my own idea, but I would have been able to understand as a queer person, and I think I would have had a completely different life. It was like, I was like, what I'm really interested in is,
but it is always, always, always about the spiritual journey of what it is to become who you are.
This show has all the hallmarks.
That's not even talking about herself. That's just saying focusing on your individual journey is important. None of those are particularly like offensive statements. Saying my perspective when making something was this isn't that drastic of a thing. You watch a lot of interviews with creatives, they'll use that same language because they want to emphasize it's my perspective and here's where my perspective came in. What do you expect? Like someone to completely decentralize themselves from a story? Would you be more interested in a story from someone who has no personal involvement in its narration, no investment, no sense of viewpoint? Again, Luke Skywalker is just Luke S. He just took the A out and made a word with the S. It's all self-insertion. Like, if your big criticism is that, oh my god, she's talking about herself in a couple of clips here and there, and people made fun of me for leaving context out. It feels like he's leaving a whole lot of everything around it to get the 3 clips of her talking about herself.
Marks of just another vanity project from a narcissistic writer who can't see past their own reflection and identity, whose creative imagination extends no further than
put a ticket in and make his name in gay!
These are the people in charge of Star Wars now, and I think it's about time that we accepted it's not going to change, ever. Disney are never going to give this franchise up, and they're never going to do any better because quite simply, they can't. And George Lucas isn't coming back riding atop a white horse to save the day. And in case you were ever in any doubt about that, just check out his latest statement where he publicly backed Bob Iger against the one and only guy who might actually have a shot at turning the company around. I guess a man really can put a price on his own dignity and self-respect. The point is, the Star Wars today is...
That's the thing I want to point out too. George Lucas is in support of Bob Iger and all those guys. Like, George Lucas is fine with Lucasfilm going the direction it's going in. And the guy who was opposing Bob Iger was someone who had no involvement in films and was responsible for The Last Airbender. So the critical drinker would rather have the guy who made The Last Airbender, the M. Night, who personally was involved with ruining the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Last Airbender. He's the one who the drinker wants in charge of Disney. The guy responsible for The Last Airbender, who insists on putting his grandniece in his Katara. That's the one who he thinks would turn Disney around. I just want to emphasize that. He thinks this is the worst thing to ever exist, but the guy who made The Last Airbender, not M. Night Shyamalan, the guy above him who's funding the film, that's the who pushed for a lot of things that ruined that movie. That's the one he wants in charge of Disney. Just pointing it out there. Also, at no point did she mention fan fiction at all, so I don't get what he's even talking about there.
It's nothing but an embarrassment to everyone associated with it. It's that pop star you idolised as a kid who's now a fat, balding, middle-aged man trying in vain to compete with artists half his age who probably has a search history more disturbing than Vosh's. It's that hot girl you dated once in high school who now has 3 kids by 3 different dads and lives off welfare checks but still goes out on the town every Saturday like she's 21. It's that 40-year-old woman in your office still listening to Taylor Swift songs, convinced there's deep meaning to be found in the trite, cliched lyrics and simplistic melodies. It's a grown-ass man who makes YouTube videos complaining about Star Wars for a living and wears shades indoors at night. Oh wait, my point here is that maybe this was ultimately for the best. Maybe it's time for fans to accept that the Star Wars they knew and grew up with is gone and it's never coming back. Maybe it's finally time to let it go and move on. Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
And then a few months later, he did not let go and kept complaining about Star Wars. Again, look, I'm not saying The Acolyte is some great thing. I think it's all right so far. But I can tell you one thing. Complaining about Star Wars is a very profitable industry. You get angry every episode. You say, "Oh, how bad this is! It's the worst." And there you go. The problem is a lot of these videos we've seen so far haven't really said much about the actual show. They've said a lot about certain scenes, certain individual segments they can discuss, but most of the rest of the show they've just tossed out. The thing is, I can talk about those scenes because I have criticisms of them. I think a lot of the show's dialogue is very stilted. I think a lot of the scenes do drag on a bit too much. I do think it's interesting how certain mysteries are added on. And I think a lot of the actors are bringing in more than the writing itself is bringing in. But again, it's also clearly a mystery. We're in the first half of it. This is where the pieces are pieced together, and clearly the how those components come together is what's going to make or break this show. And that's what it comes down to. Oh, hang on. Meow Nyan, thank you for the super chat. Did I watch Jose's video on Critical Drinker? I think I did. I'm not sure. Let me take a look at that. Jose Critical Drinker. Did I open that one? Oh, I started it, but I didn't finish it. A few minutes ago. Yeah, I'll watch that later. It looks fun. And it'd be interesting to watch anyway. So Critical Drinker, and that's the thing too. Like, the whole thing is they want to make a big thing about how bad Star Wars is now. And like, you know what? Yeah, you can easily do that. Because Star Wars has always been a mess. It's always been a colossal mess of a franchise. It's never been this great magnum opus that's perfect, immaculate from beyond the stars. It's always been a very messy, very sloppy, very silly franchise. And the sooner people accept that, the better. if you want to watch Andor season 2 looks fantastic. That's what I'm looking forward to. The Acolyte, it's a good stopgap until Andor season 2. And when Andor season 2 ends, like, look, you'll get good Star Wars eventually. There's always going to be an Andor that will come around. Although I think Andor is a fantastic example of science fiction. The thing is, it's not going to matter because Star Wars itself is just a fun sci-fi franchise. It's not the Holy Grail. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's just a science fiction franchise. And I think a lot of people who hold on to Star Wars like this immaculate example of storytelling, I think I've exhausted the well in my own patience with this one. The problem is, it's a bunch of people coming together to tell a bunch of stories, a bunch of fun stories and a bunch of silly stories. But your enjoyment will entirely factor in on how seriously you take Star Wars going in. Like, I don't take it too seriously. I think it's all right. I think on average it's an okay franchise. But whatever, it's not working out too well right now collectively. So who cares? The guy 493, thank you for the super chat. Part of me kind of wants to see these guys giving carte blanche to make their own ideal Star Wars movie out of sheer morbid curiosity. Yes, same. I would love that. I would love to see what they make and see how similar to Rebel Moon it is. Because Rebel Moon is what I think a lot of these guys would like to see. And Rebel Moon was painful. Like, I typically think Zack Snyder is I made a whole video about Zack Snyder. I think he's an okay... He has a distinct vision. It is distinct and memorable, but I think most of his movies are not that great. Rebel Moon was painful. It was one of the worst movies I've ever sat through. At least worst sci-fi films I've ever sat through. It's painful. So yeah, Star Wars is just all right. Andor is fantastic, but the average Star Wars isn't that great. And you know what? That's okay. There's a room for fun, pulpy, memorable science fiction that you watch. And Star Wars is memorable. Yeah, watch Star Trek if you want to watch good sci-fi. Agreed. Star Trek is actual science fiction, for one. Oh yeah, Crickle Drinker made a movie, didn't he? What are your thoughts on Star Wars Vision? I like Star Wars Visions. It's fun. It's a deviation. It's a good way to watch people get a small bite-sized sample of a bigger wheelhouse, a bigger playground, which I like. Season 2 was pretty solid. Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, the fact about Rebel Moon was you only got to you didn't have to pay for it. You just got to sit back on Netflix and watch it. But yeah, a lot of science fiction's out there. You just have to go out and find it. The Expanse is really good science fiction. Read the books too that the Expanse is based on. They're fantastic. The Drinker made a book. Oh, that's gonna hurt me, isn't it? I'm gonna have to read that book, aren't I? I guess I will eventually. Yeah, that's the thing too. A lot of these people are really upset over like movies made for families and kids. Like, not to be mean about it, but like a lot of these movies, and even like the adult movies that they watch, there is a juvenile edge to them. I love the Predator movies a ton, but like there is an immature glee to watching a giant alien ripping someone's spine out. It's like a wrestling match. It's fun. They wouldn't ever watch a movie like Portrait of a Woman on Fire. They wouldn't watch a movie like The Lighthouse. And if they did, they probably liked it because it was wild and crazy and weird and not like a very sophisticated look at isolation and loneliness and sadness and human misery and abject paranoia and a little cosmic horror thrown in as well. The problem is, pretty sure they hate Snyder since he dunked on Geeks and Gamers. Yeah, that's the thing. There's another reason I like Snyder. He was on a podcast with them, I remember correctly, or a live stream, and he didn't know who they really were. And after he found out, he's like, I don't condone any of that. It's like he backtracked immediately. I love it. Yeah, no. Oh, Scott Gerdes, thank you for the super chat. Watch Little Platoon's review on The Acolyte. Genuinely want to see your opinions and his criticism. Okay, Little Platoons. Okay, let's take a look at that. Get YouTube up again. Little Platoon. Let's take a look at that. I have not known that one. Okay. Let's see how this works. I don't know this channel. All right. Let's take a look. Burn It, Unlimited Cringe. 1 hour and 33 minutes on The Acolyte. Make It Stop. The Beginning of the End. The Apex of Oh, that's a different person. These are long reviews for like 20, 30-minute episodes. I don't want to go through too much. I'll watch a quick one. Let's take a look at a fast one right here. Let's see the beginning of this. See how it sounds. Oh, it's muted. Why is it muted? Okay. Let's do 2 times speed. Please don't. Platoon is just as bad as Recons videos, except longer. Thor Skywalker. Let's just take a look at this guy. See what he says.
Boy, no introduction needed for this one. Prepare yourselves for one of the television episodes of all time. Best bite down on something, we're going in dry.
Yes.
As you'll recall in episode 2, evil
They all like that one clip of her saying yes. I don't get it.
assassin Fannie Mae, who is not really evil because evil is just a point of view.
I mean, the best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on.
Except where it isn't.
The show is truly about that balance of power and balance of good versus evil.
Succeeded in persuading tragically balding Jedi Master Tommen Baratheon to take the Canadian healthcare solution to sadness.
We thought we were doing the right thing.
That is pretty much the...
Hang on, let me speed it up a little more. This is taking a little too long.
Only piece of the previous episode that is at all relevant to this one, because it should clue you in that the events we are about to witness in this absolutely tragic flashback episode might not be quite as they appear.
Flashback episode, so quickly, hooray!
Otherwise, we enjoy a brief reprieve from the rest of the present...
I did not expect a Grace Randolph jump scare from this video.
And stupidity in order to indulge in some past tense catastrophe. But both Fannie Mae and the blank protagonist, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, know they are both alive now, but Fannie Mae and Potion Master Timu Ezra have escaped the clutches of the Jedi because Padawan Jungo Fat took his eye off the ball and because Jedi Master Squid Game inexplicably did not arrest Timu Ezra, and that Fannie Mae and Timu Ezra are now off to kill a third Jedi Master, Cal Naka, is all irrelevant for the purposes of this episode. But it is relevant for the purposes of this wonderful segue. I'm telling you it's a wonderful segue because the Acolyte has convinced me that just expositing your intent is the key to good writing. Here then is a very clever segue into an ad placement, because ad placements are fun.
Oh my god, I don't know if I can handle this one. Okay, let's slow it down slightly.
Kind of tragic.
We were on the brink of extinction!
It's they spent $22 million to make this kind of tragic.
Money, a lot of money.
It's burning decades of expanded universe and replacing it with this kind of tragic. We begin somewhere in Wales, I think. A very pretty bit of scenery with the word Brendark plastered over it. I think they removed about 15 consonants from the original Welsh name to make it readable. We're also informed that we are, for the purposes of this episode, 16 years earlier.
Fade to black. Title, 3 weeks earlier.
Which tragically, and the word tragically will probably recur often during this video, means we're going to spend a whole episode being reminded why it is that child actors have such a bad reputation. We join Occupational Safety and Health Administration sitting under a pretty tree using the Force, the thread, on a beautiful flying bug thing. She releases it, but it's immediately...
This thing too with this whole thing, the thread, just another word for the same concept. It's not really changing anything.
Grabbed again by Fannie Mae. Both the twins are here together.
Bunta tree's so beautiful, but Osha, it's dangerous.
Hey, remember the last episode where the Acolyte stole the name of a Tatooine holiday and gave it to a kind of leaf that was used in the poison that killed poor Tommen Baratheon?
This is Bunta. From my home planet.
Well, here's where it comes from. Except that we already knew that this is where it comes from, because Occupational Safety and Health Administration explicitly told us, in episode 2, that this is where it comes from. For a show billed as a mystery, the Acolyte is quite remarkable in foreclosing any chance of a mystery at the earliest opportunity.
I love a good mystery. I really do. And we've never had one in Star Wars before.
But we have great...
Why are we doing so many Grace Randolph jump scares? Like, here's what I don't understand. So a lot of it, we're talking about, this is such an unimportant criticism. The name of a leaf doesn't really fucking matter in the long term, does it? Like, does it matter where the leaf came from? I don't think so. The problem is these people are taking this look at like, oh, the leaf was named after a holiday. Oh, where'd the leaf come from? Oh, it's from the planet. That's a flaw because it is apparently. Like, okay. This is just so boring.
Yes, we had it in Attack of the Clones. Pretty well the whole first act of Attack of the Clones is a mystery, and it's actually instructive when it comes to laying out the difference between a serviceable mystery and whatever the Acolyte is. Anti-mystery, I suppose. In Attack of the Clones, the mystery begins with the attempted assassination of Padme Amidala, when she suggests that Count
I'm
Dooku...
sorry, are you saying Attack of the Clones had a good mystery to it? Attack of the Clones? You're saying Attack of the Clones had a good mystery. Okay, if you say so.
Who may have been behind it, she is rebuffed, as Mace Windu tells her,
You know, milady, Count Dooku was once a Jedi. He couldn't assassinate anyone.
When a second attempt is made, Anakin and Obi-Wan chase...
Yeah, we know it's Count Dooku from the beginning, they tell us.
down Zam Wazell, but Zam is hit by a toxic dart from a mysterious flying man. The dart is of unknown origin, and Kenobi must take it to the most worldly wise guy he knows in the hopes that he can identify it. It's George Lucas.
I'm sorry. Are you trying to praise the 1950s diner in the Star Wars movie as like a high level of quality compared to Space Witches? You're saying that the diner is higher level than the Space Witches? Like, people have made fun of how ridiculous the assassination attempt was in Attack of the Clones. It's a running gag. It's so goofy. How could you look at that and go, this is high quality storytelling? Space Witches existing is bad. Having a mystery where we know the culprit at the beginning, that's bad. It's not like, again, Columbo. Just watch Columbo. Anyway.
I mean, it's Dex the Jetster. Old Dex tells him it's a Kamino and Saber Dart and gives Kenobi a vague location for their homeworld. But when Kenobi looks it up in the Jedi archives, he gets an intergalactic 404 file not found. He then takes the conundrum to Master Yoda.
Lost a planet, Master Obi-Wan has. How embarrassing.
It ought to be here, but it isn't. Gravity is pulling all the stars in the area towards this spot.
And one of the producer's kids suggests that the planet isn't in the records anymore because someone must have deleted it.
Again, like, here's the problem. Here's my problem with this. He goes into excruciating detail, presumably with the rest of the Acolyte episode, but then glosses over the prequel to only highlight the bits that are relevant to his point. Now, granted, you can do that. You can make a review like this, but the clear lopsided perspective of it is where I draw issue, because it's implying that it was great before without any of these flaws, but then when you find that connective flaw, like, for example, highlighting the fact that fire was in space, all these reviewers did that. But it's also in the original films. But the original films are perfect. Star Wars was perfect. And now it's bad because fire in space. But then we're going to have to move on to something else. In episode 3 especially, they really criticize the existence of space witches. Which, ultimately, they do the wavy thing with their hands. Well, the forces. When they're using the force push and all that, it's the same mentality. It's just a little more wiggly fingers involved. That's it. The Night Sisters were already a thing. Well established all the way back from, like, I think even before the animated Clone series, right? Like, they were way back there. So again, it's like they're acting like this is some new thing when meanwhile it's been around for like decades and decades. Oh, Myeon, thank you for super chat. Space witches are weirdly in line with the previous canon that their Star Wars weirdos love and cherish. Aren't Jedi just space wizards? Yeah, they basically are. That's why Star Wars isn't science fiction, it's science fantasy. If you gave them pointy hats, they'd just be wizards. There'd be no difference. They have magical abilities that they can pull out of nowhere, a magic system that influences the world, lots of unusual creatures. The science never adds up, but the magic is always evolving. It's basically fantasy. And the only reason why they were more limited in the lore of Star Wars in the original trilogy is because the only people who knew how to use the Force well were dying off. Luke and Vader. Vader, of course, is a very powerful Force user, but he is also he's only fighting his son, who he doesn't really want to kill ever. He never wants to harm. He doesn't really want to harm Luke at any point in the movies, even though he will, like, he demonstrably incapacitates him and drives Luke to fight him harder, but he's never going all out against Luke. We see Palpatine throw Force lightning out because it's a cool thing you can do. But that right there, it's never established that that's like the only thing the Force can do. It's not like, oh, you can only Force push, you can only Force mind control, and you can only Force lightning. These are just a few things we see the Force do. And Luke's limited perspective in the trilogy is how we interpret it. There's no reason why not to believe that the Force can't impregnate someone. It's a universal power. we see the Force heal in these movies, and that's fine too. There's no reason why not to believe that it can heal. It's a universal presence. Attack of the Clones, I think, is the worst of the prequels. It's the only movie in the Star Wars saga I fell asleep watching more than once. It is boring as sin. This is my least favorite Star Wars movie by a mile. That's an opinion. I know it's a hot take, but I think Attack of the Clones is painful to watch. Like, profoundly painful.
It's truly wonderful the mind of a producer's child is. Yoda is troubled by the deletion, suggesting...
I don't know if I trust the opinion of anyone who thinks Attack of the Clones is like something, a great highlight of Star Wars. I don't know if I can stand this guy's review anymore. I'm not going to lie. This is kind of hard to sit through. If he's going to complain, if he's going to say the Attack of the Clones was so great and The Acolyte is somehow bad, I don't know if I can stomach it. Especially not for an hour and a half. That's way too long. What else does this guy do? What else has he made? Okay, so every video he's done so far is about The Acolyte. And then Rebel Moon. He didn't like... Okay. He doesn't like Ahsoka. He doesn't like the Marvels. He doesn't like Echo. He doesn't like Madame... Oh, okay, Madame was just bad. What does he like? He made 3 videos in Ahsoka. Huh, okay. Clever pun, I guess. I'm sorry, 4 videos in Ahsoka. Disney's Dead, Dead on Arrival, What the hell happened? He doesn't like any of these movies. Like, what does he like? He didn't like Wakanda Forever? That was a pretty solid movie, actually. I thought that was pretty good. He made multiple movies. He made 3 movies about Wakanda Forever. What is he? He doesn't like Prey? What does he actually like? He was teasing he didn't like the Batman? Like, what does he actually enjoy? It just feels like he doesn't enjoy anything. Maybe Andor. That's about it. See, I don't understand that. I don't get that kind of mentality. Like, how can you not at one point just talk about something that you enjoy or like? Like, I personally like to spice up with when I make videos. I'd like to make something that's fun. You know, heavy video, fun video. Something that at least raise my spirits a little bit. I don't really care about the algorithm. I don't depend on this to live my living anyway. But like how do you bask in such misery for so long? Like, it just seems sad to me. Like, you just exist in that space for that long and you never... Can we get a normie view of an Acolyte with Moist's video? Okay, let's do that. A normal video. Moist Critical. Okay. Moist Critical. Here we go.
I was an extra in the Hunger...
The Exorcism. Can you believe that they're making like another Exorcist movie with Russell Crowe that has nothing to do with the Pope's Exorcist? I just love that. Alright, let's see what we got here. Somehow this got worse. Okay. This movie's so dumb. Is this as horrible as everyone's saying? Okay, let's take a look at this.
Star Wars has a new show that just released called Acolyte, and a lot of people are saying that this is the worst Star Wars show ever produced. Which I have to raise a big eyebrow to, because did we all forget Book of Boba Fett exists?
Yeah, that's much worse.
What blows my mind is some people still defend that show, saying like, oh, the last 2 episodes are good, but I mean, let's just go ahead and forget about the other episodes before it. Like the Vespa chase scene God help us all. I'd show you the clip if I wasn't worried about being copyright struck for it, but there is an unironic chase scene in Star Wars Book of Boba Fett where they are pursuing each other on Vespas that probably go about as fast as I can jog. And I am not fast at jogging. If you've seen me do the presidential fitness course, you'll know my top speed is that of maybe a child falling down the stairs, like a very small flight of stairs. I am not fast, but I am confident I could have outrun the Vespas in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Book of Boba Fett. That's one I just don't enjoy. That's a hard one for me to sit through as well.
Point is, recently Star Wars has just been a shell of its former self, which sucks to see because it's a franchise that meant so much to me growing up and meant so much to me for such a long time, but I just have not enjoyed it in a while. The only things in the Star Wars universe I've enjoyed in recent times were the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, the entirety of Andor. Andor was shockingly good, and also I liked the Han Solo movie. That's a really controversial hot take, but that's just a genuinely turn your brain off fun sci-fi film if you forget that it's supposed to tie into Star Wars in any way. It's self-aware cheesiness, and I just had a good time watching it. And I can't say that about pretty much anything else Star Wars has done for the last decade. And for the most part, I stopped tuning in. I swore off the franchise because I just haven't been enjoying it, so what's the point in just banging my head against this wall in boredom? But with the headline of...
See, that's the right mentality to have. If you don't enjoy something, just don't watch it. Who cares? You know?
Acolyte being the worst Star Wars thing ever made, I had to check it out. When people say French fry, I pizza, you know what I mean? Like, if something is said to be truly horrific, avoid at all costs, I'm going right over there and I'm taking a big old fucking sniff of it. I've got to know, does the shit smell like poop? Time to find out. I'd like to form my own opinions on it. So, I watched the first 3 episodes of Acolyte, which are the only 3 episodes that are out, and I want to vomit my thoughts into your mouth like a baby bird being fed by its mother here. We're going to go over the good and the bad, and there's not much good. Let's start with the good, actually, because that'll be nice and quick. I actually really like the action. The action in this is mainly hand-to-hand combat, and they do a pretty good job with it. Also, just a heads up, my house isn't haunted. That's not a poltergeist event. That claw machine is almost ready, so right now it seems the engineers are tinkering around with it remotely. So, I mean, it's pretty cute. Sorry, I wanted to see if they won. So they're using the Force remotely to play my fucking claw machine behind me. Don't be distracted. Point is, the fights. I actually liked the fights. It's flashy, hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, and that's nice. There's not a lot of it, but when it's there, it's at least refreshing. It's this welcomed palate cleanser from the very terrible writing that the show has. Like, I don't even think the characters are even bad per se. Like, they could have been pretty interesting, but the writing is so cringe. And I know I use that word real loosey-goosey. I mainly use it ironically, but here I really do mean it. It sounds like they're trying to be deep, but don't know how. For example, one of the bad guys, he's like, "Steel and laser no good against Jedi. Have to kill the dream." And then fucking fires up his lightsaber for no reason. All to be like really cinematic and dramatic. It's just really lame. Like, all of the writing falls super flat. Even when you have characters I think could work pretty well, they just can't write them well, unfortunately. So the show starts with who we think is the main character killing a Jedi Master in a bar fight. And the bar fight's really cool if you don't think about it too hard. She's supposed to be all about peace, but she waits until after all of her friends get their shit pushed in, absolutely clobbered by this assassin who came up to her, letting her know her intentions, like, I am here because I want to kill you. Like, I am here because I am going to fucking murder everyone here to kill you. And the Jedi Master just kind of blows her off like, whatever, punk, loser, get out of this bar. So then she starts killing, or not killing, she starts, you know, annihilating all of her friends, and then after they're all down is when she steps up, and that just doesn't make much sense. Like, why? Like, I feel like as a Jedi you'd probably act before then to protect your...
I was kind of getting into this one a little bit. This is actually like a well-articulated review. I want to emphasize that right now. This is the kind of negative review I'd want to see more of. You're talking about the writing. You're talking about, hey, this seems out of character. The characters have potential, but they're not well written. I don't agree with what he's saying necessarily, but at least he's saying it in a way that's compelling and, like, reasonable. Like, it's not like rage baity. It's more like, okay, I'm probably not gonna watch the whole thing. So I feel like I think it's, if it's this kind of tone consistently, I think I'm not gonna have too much to criticize with it. He's just saying, hey, I thought the writing was weak. Yeah, it's a little weak, and it's just like, okay, that's your opinion. It's not that bad. This is an okay review. I think it's solid so far. This is because it's a review. He's talking about the content. I don't have to agree with it, but a couple things a good review does, even if you disagree with it, is this: it makes you think about the media in question, right? And right here, he's saying, oh, it's this character's being dramatic, whatever. It makes no sense. All poetically. He's like, oh, we can't fight with weapons. We have to fight the dream. Lights up sword. So yeah, that is silly and hokey, but also the dark side's always been hokey and silly, so that's cool if that's what you're getting into. And like, he seems to have a perspective, and I don't really watch Moist Critical all that much, so I'm not really engaging from the perspective of like, oh, I'm a lifelong fan. I know from clips, that's about it. But at least he's talking about the show, he's talking about the writing, he's talking about the narrative, and while he is saying, hey, there's not much good here, he does acknowledge that there's good, and his good response is fair. So let's go to a little bit where he goes more negative. I do want to hear his negatives, but I'm pretty much going to say this is probably this is a stronger review than, other
Friends. And then she eventually dies to the assassin because the assassin throws a knife at the bartender and the Jedi Master force stops it, and then she takes a knife in the heart while she was distracted for stopping it. So she acted to protect the bartender far more than she acted to protect any of the friends she was with, and it led to her death.
Yeah,
she died to basically a small fucking kitchen knife blade. Of course, it's very sharp. It's a real weapon, but I mean, it's a Jedi Master. You don't typically expect them to die to something like that. That was pretty underwhelming. But the fight itself was flashy and cool, but when you really start to break apart like why it was happening and the way in which the Jedi died here, kind of silly. Now, after the Jedi Master's death, they figure out who the most likely culprit is behind the assassination. It's our main character, Osha, who is a former Jedi. Well, she was trained as a Jedi and left 6 years ago. Now she works as basically a ship repair person. Like, she does a lot of, like, maintenance on ships.
Again, it's a lot of
the Jedi
just
come up
summing
to
up
her,
the plot.
accuse her of the crime. The bartender even identifies her, and it turns out she's innocent. Osha had a twin sister named May. And 16 years ago, or 15 years ago, I forget exactly the timeline, there was this big fire where only Osha survived. Everyone thought May died. And by everyone, I mean Osha and Jedi Master Sol, who was there and took Osha as his Padawan. He thought May was dead, watched her die, but it turns out May's alive, and she's out for revenge on 4 Jedi in particular. So now she's just on a galactic killing spree. Now, initially, when the premise was starting to unfold here, I thought this was going to be like Osha's going to have to go on her own solo mission to prove that it's not her killing the Jedi, it's actually her twin sister who is alive. But nope, the Jedi immediately learn that May is real, and actually even get her caught in a sting operation in the second episode, immediately. She goes to this Jedi Master...
You see, I like that, though. I like they don't waste time on this whole proving their identity thing, because it's like every other show would do that. I like how they just they subvert your expectations a little bit there, because at least it's not going through the motions that you know they're going to go through. Because it can be so exhausting in some shows where you have to go through the expected tropes while the audience knows, oh, they're innocent, we know who it is, it's the twin, It's such a cliche at times. So I'm glad they just skipped that nonsense and got right to, okay, we know who the killer is, let's sketch the killer, but the real mystery is the why, not the who. And again, this isn't like Shakespeare. We aren't talking about some Shakespearean language. And I think I got the gist of what his review is like. There's nothing really to criticize here. He's just sharing his opinion. There's not much really he has that's like super offensive here. I don't think it's worth getting angry about. So we're going to skip past this. I think I'll wrap it up around now, though. It's been 3 hours, and I don't like these streams going over 3 hours typically, unless it's like a real singular focus of ours. But yeah, no, this is just a fast food fantasy sci-fi. This is not worth getting angry about. If you don't like it, just don't watch it. It's not worth your time to get this upset over, I think. If you don't like The Acolyte, whatever, watch something else. There's a million shows on right now. You can watch Shogun. That's a great show. I think Shogun's fantastic. Watch that again. And yeah, I'm going to look through a few comments real quick before we run away. But yeah, I'm not going to waste my time with a lot of these reviewers. A lot of it is just... And honestly, here's the thing too. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how some of you guys can sit through this kind of shit all the time. Like, this is exhausting. I feel genuinely drained having watched these negative reviews. Like, there's a soul-sucking quality to it, where you're like, the misery, the abject exhaustion. Like, for 3 hours, I've been watching these things, and I just feel miserable. Like, none of it made me feel good. I'm going to watch something goofy after this, because, quite frankly, this was exhausting. I feel more tired having sat through these negative reviews than I did watching Lily Orchard. Genuinely. This is just misery-inducing. How anyone can sit through these angry, repetitive reviews where they all say the exact same thing every single time, day in and day out. I have no idea how some of you guys function if this is what you're watching. This is painful. Like, it's so negative and so without any outlet for joy that it's like you watch it and you feel miserable. Ugh. Like, this is sad. Like, the Moist Critical, I'm happy with the Moist Critical one because at least it wasn't, I hope this isn't, yeah, this image has, this particular, I'm not sure if you know this particular piece of fan art. There's a certain thing I'm glad it's not showing that's a little inappropriate for YouTube. If you have horror movies, you know what I'm talking about. But no, it's just a misery-inducing thing, and I don't know how anyone functions with that. But again, so thank you everyone for joining me so far. This is fantastic. Next week, I'm going to have a full video on The Acolyte. I'm going to use clips from this stream, spursed throughout, not like, it's not going to be a 3-hour video. I'm going to use like probably 20 minutes. I think are like the good bits in this stream that I can use in a video to use as evidence. But, you know, don't expect too much from this stream. I'm going to mainly look at the general overview, articulate my perspective as to why I think a lot of these critics just aren't hitting the mark for me, or why they seem to exist in this perpetual state of misery. And like, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is exhausting. Not streaming. I love streaming with you guys. You guys are great. But like, it's just exhausting watching these guys because you just feel like miserable by the end of it. Yeah, I'd rather talk about things I enjoy. But you know what? We'll see in The Acolyte what happens there. So thank you everyone for watching. This was a great stream, despite the fact that you had no sound for the first 3 minutes of the stream. Stay tuned for my full breakdown of The Acolyte drama next week, where I'd hopefully be drawing in from some info from responses from episodes 5 and 6. And I will catch you all, hopefully, with a way more uplifting video to follow. At the end of this week, it's going to be a goofy one. Very silly, minimal levels of, like, anything bad. That's my treat for getting through The Acolyte. This Friday, we're going to talk about Sailor Moon in my video essay. So if you like that, hopefully you have fun there. All right,